I'm now on the right stream. I started a new stream, but I didn't even set up. This is the tech issues I was having issues with. Hello? Are we here? Are we live? Am I on the right stream now? I think I am. Hello, hello, finally. Apologies about that. Some tech issues with the streaming software. Yeah, but we are on the correct live stream now. I'll delete that previous one. And we are all good and tickety-boo. Apologies for that slight delay there, but hello, everyone. Hello, this is why we go live early, you see. This is why we go live an hour, another reason why we go live an hour before the race and not 10 minutes before. Because it gives us more time to sort out these tech issues. It's the beauty, I guess, of having a PC, isn't it? Sometimes things just stop working for no reason whatsoever. But how's everyone doing? How's your Sunday treating you? Welcome, welcome. Let's get the live stream up for myself. I'm late. I tried to make it on time. I did try to. But welcome, everyone. Hope you're good. Hope you're good. A little bit cooler here in the UK today. A little bit cooler. It is currently 24, 25 degrees here. So a lot more comfortable. Still warm, but like as warm as you want it, I think, really, here in the UK. So yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. A lot cooler. Still got the fans on. And I think I will be purchasing an AC unit or something with this not being the last of the warm weather that is forecast. But yeah, all good. Much more comfortable for this Austrian Grand Prix ahead of us. And I think it's going to be a real good one, guys. Evening, Alan. Good to see you. Welcome, everyone. It's 50 degrees here in India. Yeah. The thing is, though, I still bet you 50 degrees where you are in India is more comfortable than 30+ degrees in the UK. It is different. Anyone who's been here, anyone who doesn't live in the UK and has been here and experienced the UK summer. It is all, I say UK summer, not even a UK summer, just the UK in over 30-degree heat is something else. Hopping on to a question right away. Given the pace of Russell in the final lap yesterday, does Ferrari have a pole chance? Well, they don't have a pole chance because qualifying's already happened and they've lost pole. But in the race, anything is still possible. Look, Mercedes are evidently still the quickest team. I still think there is going to be a race here today between Ferrari and Mercedes, primarily. I think, look, we know that clean air is always king. There's a couple of big questions today. Well, there's three, really. There's three big questions today. The first one. No, that's incorrect, isn't it? The first one, there we go, one down, is the tyres. I know there's not going to be a lot of physical degradation, but how will the Mercedes manage their tyre temps today? Also Ferrari, but I think Ferrari are better from what we saw in Barcelona. How will they be able to manage them? Because it's hot. It's 53 degrees at the moment. We'll change scene in just a second. And it's 53-degree track temperature, so it's hot out there. Hotter than it has been all weekend. That's going to burn these tyres alive. The next one more left, and that isn't my middle finger, FYI. The last one, I'll change it to the index finger. Sorry, the second one. Set 2 out of 3 is the overtake mode. How effective is the overtake mode going to be here? We no longer have 3 DRS zones. Everyone has access to active aero, so there is no longer that lead car punching a hole in the air for everyone behind. Of course, they still are, but it's not going to be as effective because they've also got active aero accessible to them. So overtake mode, is it going to be useful today? That is going to be influential to whether we're going to see some good racing still. And then the last one is Mercedes reliability and just the reliability in general of the cars today. It is hot. It is a higher altitude. The air is thinner. The engines are going to have to work harder. The turbo is not going to have as much air to be able to operate as it wants to. That is going to be, and those are the 3 key questions that I have today, really. And, well, you've got George Russell at the front, who has had good results here in the past, but is a bit of a tyre shredder. Is he going to be able to... Is he going to be good on his tyres here? Antonelli's still a little bit unknown about his tyre management as well. We know they're quick. And, of course, it's not to say that there won't be a team collision here today. Yes, let's say if Ferrari do end up getting outperformed here by Mercedes. We have seen Mercedes collide here in the past, of course, and we've seen many collisions for the lead here in the past. And I think even if Antonelli clears those Ferraris quite comfortably, we know he is going to be a man possessed, really. He feels hard done by that he wasn't on pole position yesterday after mistaking that yellow, that incorrect single yellow, for a double yellow, and he completely backed out of his lap, whereas he should have done what George did and just done a sufficient lift as per the stewards' requests, I guess. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting one for sure. Is Max starting from the pits today after his moment yesterday in qualifying is a question. I don't think so, no. If he was starting from the pit lane, they have at least not, unless an issue occurs now. So let's change scene. I'll show you. It's easier to show you. So, drivers will be on their recon laps soon. We'll leave that message there. If someone has announced that they're starting from the pit lane, this starting grid changes. And everyone is starting where they qualified yesterday. So, Max Verstappen, as far as I'm aware, is not starting from the pit lane. He hasn't broken Parc Ferme. Unless something occurs between now and the formation lap, he will be starting from 5th place. So he'll be obviously very aggressive at the start as well. He might not have the race pace. Of course, we'll have a look at what the predictions are for race pace, or the data that has been gathered overall. We will have a look at it, and it makes for interesting reading, to be honest with you. So be sure to stay tuned for that. And of course, the all-important tyre selections and strategy options today going to play a key factor. Really is. And I think we're going to see as many DNFs here today as what we saw in Barcelona. So I think I should probably run another poll, to be honest with you, of how many DNFs. Maybe we'll do that. But get your votes in at the moment of who you think is going to win the Austrian GP. I have put just a top 4. Sorry, Max Verstappen fans. I have put just Russell, Leclerc, Hamilton and Antonelli. And, well, 50% of you have faith in Lewis Hamilton. Next best is Antonelli. It's pretty even, to be fair, between Leclerc and Antonelli. Not many people, even though Russell is starting on pole, don't have faith in Russell. What's happening with the connection? You just need to... Oh, don't tell me YouTube's doing this again. Just reload YouTube and try and watch in a lower resolution. That helps. How many cars go a lap down today? Oh, I reckon everyone... Ooh, I reckon everyone but the top 5. Now, who are in that top 5? Could be McLaren's. It could be Hadjar eventually. I don't know, but I think with this being as short a lap as it is, I think the top 5 will be the only cars that don't get lapped. Can a free pit stop strategy be a game changer again? Well, we will see, Indra. We will see what the strategy options are. What I will say about a free stop here is that, of course, a free stop that... It depends on how much pace there is, obviously, out there on circuit, and it off there is of the tyres. The hotter it is, the more likely there is to be a free stop, I think, because that means that the tyres are going to be just not as long-lasting. Because you lose grip. The tyres are going to be blistering a lot. Trying to manage the tyre temps in those conditions is going to be really tricky. So free stop is more viable. Of course, virtual safety cars and so forth may put hay to strategy today. I don't think we will see a one-stop. Little spoiler there. I don't think we will see a one-stop. But we'll get onto the strategies soon anyway in relation to what we can see here today and all of the tyres that are available and the all-important pit stop loss time, etc. How many laps today? It is 71 laps. 71 laps. So a lot. But it's a short circuit. Yellows and safety car will lend to a free stop, and methinks. It will. Yeah, I mean, as I said, it just depends how the race unfolds today. It depends on the degradation. It depends how easy it is to overtake. Because if it is tricky to overtake it, and I don't suspect it will be, because Red Bull Ring is always a place that provides overtaking. But as I said, we don't have the effectiveness of DRS anymore. This was one of the tracks. This was one of the tracks where the DRS was effective. You had to have at least 7/10 pace advantage over the car behind you to be able to pull away out of the DRS, and that DRS is no longer in effect, is it? Everyone has access to the active aeros, so the emphasis now on the overtaking aid is the overtake mode. Of course, there's the boost mode and so forth as well. So yeah, I think it is going. I think we will. I'm positive. I'm still positive about this circuit that it will provide overtaking, but it does really depend on how that is unfolding, how easy it is to follow, how easy it is to overtake, etc., rather than just give up track position. Have my viewing stats returned to normal? I hope so. They have now, Dan. Yeah. Mainly because there's always ups and downs. Some races are more popular than others. Also, we had the large interruption in the season as well, which kind of never really got going, did it, the season? Whereas now I feel like the season is going. So yeah, the viewing figures are back up, and the subscribers and the growth and everything is trending in the right direction. And yes, little one is happy. She's playing at the moment. She's just had lunch, so she's got Peppa Pig on the TV, and she is loving life right now. And she'll be probably going down for a nap as soon as the race starts. How was the holiday? Holiday was lovely. It was nice to put the feet up for 10 days. It didn't help that we got held on the plane, on the tarmac for an hour 45. We missed our slot apparently because passport control took forever to let people through, and then we were getting shouted at by the stewardesses as we were walking down to the plane, saying we've got 5 minutes, otherwise there's a delay. And it's like, hang on a second, it's not our fault. And then unfortunately, yeah, they missed the time slot, and we had to wait an hour 45. So that was fun. That was a fun takeoff with a screaming baby. But yeah, all good. Other than that, the holiday was lovely. It was nice to have some rest and some sun, a break from everyday life, you know. Sort of highlights of the F3 race. Boy, could this race be chaotic? Well, yeah, the F3, the junior drivers. The junior formulas always do provide some entertainment here at the Red Bull Ring. There's always someone, I saw it in the F2 sprint race, there's always someone who just thinks that they can shove their car into the disappearing wedge that is turn 3. They just don't understand. They just don't understand how the angles and like just what turn 3 is. It happens all the time, every single year without fail. It could happen here in F1 as well. It wouldn't surprise me if it happens here on the first lap also. FIA keeps turning fans off F1. They keep changing the rules as they base on which car is the favourite for the season. I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, look, I know, let's talk about George Russell yesterday. So now the dust has settled. And we did discuss this after qualifying as well, for those of you that missed it, as new information came to light. What George Russell did was within the rules. He was not at fault. Now, you can have a discussion, and then there should be a discussion about whether the double yellows should have been waved instantly or a red flag should have been thrown instantly, because regardless of which driver it is, of course it was Max, but regardless of which driver it is, a car has gone off at one of the fastest corners on the circuit, where if they also lose control of their car in a similar manner to Max, their car is also heading off into that same trajectory, into that same section of barrier that Max is currently trying to exit his vehicle out of. So I think a red flag should have been thrown, especially with how haphazard they are. How happy they are to throw a red flag. I'm very surprised that they didn't throw a red flag yesterday. And the reason why they didn't throw a red flag yesterday, or double yellows, sooner. Well, they've explained why the double yellows were waved sooner, but we'll get to that. But the reason why they didn't throw a red flag is purely because, let's be real, purely for entertainment purposes, because everyone was on their last lap. It's simple as that. There were 2 cars behind Max Verstappen, 2 Mercedes. So for the entertainment value and for the sake of just having 2 cars behind only to finish their laps and come through that section where Max had crashed, they didn't throw a red flag. Simple as. If that was towards the start of a session, they would have done that. They would have thrown a red flag, I guarantee you. But because it literally was 2 more corners of Q3, they've let it go. They've just let it go. Let's be real. And I don't think that's right. I think safety, as everyone is stating, should come first. And some instances, yes, the FIA have been too trigger happy when it comes to throwing the red flag. But the double yellows, why were the double yellows not thrown instantly? Well, that's kind of the marshal's mistake. So the marshal who was there at the marshal who was there initially at Max Verstappen's crash, threw the yellow flag. So he was waving the yellow flag. It was only when the race control got wind or saw what the extent of Max's crash, which was 15 seconds later, that he went, no, double yellows are required. And within that 15-second period, that was when Kimi Antonelli and George Russell made their way through that section, which was only a yellow flag. So really, it should have been double yellows. Once it was understood the extent of the crash, double yellows were waved, but by then, George and Antonelli had already gone through. So maybe it's a communication part of the race. Oh, there's already a double yellow. So some cars are doing practice starts there. They're doing practice starts on the exit of the pit lane, as drivers are now on their recon laps, and hopefully there's no discrepancies here. That's the only reason why there's double yellows, I believe, unless one of the Haasies can't get away. Surely they're just doing some practice starts. Yeah, there you go, practice starts as Behrman pulls away. So some drivers doing practice starts. Didn't Kimi say he had double yellow appear on his dash? So he misinterpreted what a double yellow was, Dan. He misinterpreted it. He even admitted, yeah, it was a single yellow. I just misinterpreted what was a single yellow and what was a double yellow. Whereas George got it right. And that's just for experience, really. That's all that is. No sound. If you're saying you've got no sound, restart the stream, because it seems everyone else is quite comfortable at the moment with sound. I'm showing no issues on my end, but there's no sound. Schoolboy error. Yeah, it's a schoolboy error, but that's the reason what happened. So, look, George did nothing wrong. Now, there's also an argument now to be had around what is sufficient. What is a sufficient lift? And this is where it's intriguing with these current regulations as well, is that you can see from the mini sectors, and I did see a clip of the mini sectors, that basically George did lift. You can see from the onboard he did lift. However, you can argue, was that lift sufficient for safety concerns? Was that lift sufficient for him to be able to slow down enough? Now, when you do have a yellow flag, you don't have to slow down enough to come to a stop. You need to be able to slow down enough to avoid like an incident that is up ahead. Double yellows is the more severe one, and that's where you need to be able to slow enough to be able to come to a stop. That's why speeding under double yellows is massively frowned upon. And of course, a red flag exactly the same, because you only red flag because you're nullifying the session, you're cancelling the session, pausing it. So the thing is that when you look at the mini sectors, George went purple in the first mini sector and first few mini sectors in the third sector. And then he went yellow, yellow, yellow through, obviously, turn 9. But with these cars, and this is the uniqueness of this regulation set, as we know, one of the ways to recharge the battery is to lift off early. Use the engine braking. And what happened with George, and if you see the ghost lap comparison between Charles's lap and George's lap, this is where it's most prevalent, and you can physically see it. What has happened there is that because he's lifted off into turn 9, which he normally wouldn't do, he has actually given himself a bit more recharge of battery. And as he exits turn 10 and puts his foot down on the throttle, you can physically see on the ghost lap that George shoots off, because Charles has got no battery. He's used it all at the end of the lap. And George has a little bit extra stored up because he's had to take an uncharacteristic lift, a forced lift into turn 9 because of the yellow flag. And that's allowed him to maintain a two and a bit temps advantage over Charles Leclerc. And that normally wouldn't be the case. That gap would have been a lot closer when it came to previous regulations. So, yeah, that's why that gap is as large as it is, and why it seems so so crazy. So yeah, a really unique set of circumstances. It provided for a dramatic end of qualifying. I watched back my reaction, and it was like, well, I've watched back quite a few reactions, and everyone's the same. Like, what the hell is going on here? But it was crazy to see so many different purple sectors being traded. And also, George said as well afterwards, he wished he could explain where the extra pace advantage came from. And I do think that a lot of that just comes from the track evolution. As we've seen, it's a theme now. It's definitely a theme. It's not coincidence that the later you go out in this regulation set, that the quicker you will be. That is how the track evolution is planned out. Some tracks are more prevalent than others. But definitely, it's risky, of course, because of yellow flags. But the later you go out, the more time that you just automatically find by not even doing much more. So, yeah, that's what George found. And Max and Kimi found being the last 3 out there, whereas Ferrari were at the front end of that, wasn't they? Even though it was only kind of like half a lap ahead of them, of everyone else, it's enough. That's how much grip you're able to find. But there we go. There we go. Even in the ghost lap, George practically lost no time to Leclerc near the corner where he lifted off. The gap didn't even close off at all. No, because George was already ahead. That's the thing. So George in that last sector, in turn 7 and turn 8, he was so quick. So quick compared to Charles. And of course, we know that they're quick anyway. And it just shows that even though he lifted off, the Ferrari probably didn't. That you've got to remember, the battery plays such an important role at the moment that it's not about losing time to Charles. It's about whether or not he sufficiently slowed on his own lap, and you can see that he had yellow mini sectors, and that's the data and the telemetry and so forth that the teams that the FIA would have had, the stewards would have had access to determine whether he did sufficiently react to that yellow flag. And he did. But because of the normally, then that gap would close towards the end of the lap, but it didn't because he was able to recharge the battery in that instance and use some of it coming out the last corner. So very unique set of circumstances that, of course, is also unique because of the way that the cars operate now with the power distribution. And, just it will open questions and maybe a review moving forward about double yellows being waived. As soon as someone is in the wall, marshals should be, rather than a yellow, they should be throwing double yellows. Maybe that's what needs to be relayed to all marshals. Of course, marshals are volunteers as well, so they're not always going to get it completely right, and the race control did react in a sufficient way once they knew that Max was in the wall. There's always going to be a slight delay of information being communicated, isn't there? So, but there we go. That's qualifying. That's qualifying from yesterday. I hope everyone's well. I can see the chat going up and down, so thank you for tuning in. Get your votes in of who you think is going to win the Austrian Grand Prix. We'll do a second vote of how many DNFs we think are going to be today as well. So lots of drivers. Something to note here, that Lawson has been noted for failing to follow the race director's instructions, a practice start infringement. So lots of drivers. So where the practice start is everyone's basically queuing up at the end of the pit lane, as you can see there from Piastri and Behrman. But I'm not sure if I'm yet to see where Lawson potentially did a practice start. I don't know how it would be an infringement, but we will get understanding of that soon, and probably a replay of it soon. What are my current thoughts on the world drivers? Investigation is to be investigated after the race, Liam Lawson. So he's going to have that hanging over his head for the whole race. Oh, goodness me. My thoughts on the World Championship at the moment. I think it is shaping up to be a good one. I really do. Mercedes Yes, they're strong still, but I'm intrigued to see how this race unfolds. Hamilton, I think the one thing you can say about Hamilton, why Antonelli is leading and while George Russell is up there, I think what you can see from what we saw last year, particularly with McLaren, is that you had two drivers in the same team, dominant team, take points off of each other. That's going to continue throughout this season from Russell and Antonelli. Ferrari are going to make improvements, but what you saw last year, and I think is what you're going to see this year as well, is that Max, and I'm not saying Hamilton's going to win the same amount of races that Max did last year, because Max won more races than both McLaren, so which is crazy to say. But what you've got, like with Max last year, and I think this year with Hamilton, is that you've got two very consistent drivers. And Hamilton clearly feels a lot more comfortable with the car underneath him, and he is going to consistently score points this year. And I do think that there will be points this year where the Mercedes collide. It could very well be in this race. You can clip that. They could very well collide in this race, and Hamilton picks up a whole heap of points. There's going to be races where the Ferrari will win as they just naturally close that gap to Mercedes. They're able to maybe even win today with strategy and just tyre management and so forth. And he is going to be there throughout the whole year. Will he win? I don't know. I don't know who's going to win. But also, you've got the fact of Russell and Antonelli going for their first world title. And I don't think it should be over. It can't be stated enough how much the pressure really will be on these two drivers' shoulders come the end of the year when it comes to crunch time and they are going for their first world title. Of course, that's if it is still close, but the pressure is immense. At the start of the season, it's not, because it seems so far away. But come the end of the year, when you've got someone who's been there and done it multiple times, like Max last year, like Lewis has done, potentially could do this year, that's when someone's consistently picking up points as well and been there and done it so many times, that really plays a factor. So, but anyway, here we go. So everyone has made it round to their grid slots absolutely fine. It doesn't seem like there's been any issues whatsoever, and apart from Liam Lawson being investigated for after the race for failing to follow race director's instructions for practice starts, which is a shame because he's going to have that hanging over his head for the rest of the race. Let's have a look at the all-important strategy options for today, because this is going to be another intriguing race in the pit lane and with potential time management and so forth, which always, as we saw in Barcelona, as we've seen many times before, does provide more intrigue. So let's have a look at them. So, here we are, ladies and gents. Here we are. 71 laps of the Austrian Grand Prix in Spielberg at the Red Bull Ring. And we have, at minimum, a two-stop race here today. Oh, beautiful. Look at that. 3 two-stop options and 1 three-stop option presented by Pirelli. Mwah. How good is that to see? So, the primary strategies for today is really the use of the medium compound tyre and the hard compound, and well, we'll see who has what tyres available to use today, as if you have saved 2 hards for this weekend, you can use the medium tyre to start off with and then go to 2 sets of hard compound tyres, or you can go medium, hard, medium. Now, really, what we've seen in previous years is the medium, hard, medium. That second option there be the primary strategy of choice. It does all depend, of course, on the blistering, on the pace of the tyres. The physical degradation here isn't too high. Of course, it's more so about managing those tyre temps. So if the hotter the track gets, and if the construction of these tyres don't deal with the temperatures and the car's drivers, of course, too heavy on the throttle, then they're going to kill their tyres a lot quicker. So that may make the number one strategy, the hard compound tyre, 2 hard compound tyres, the primary strategy for those who maybe are struggling with thermal degradation more, because they will last longer. But there is the option there at the third option to do soft, medium, hard. And the reason why that is a viable opportunity is because of that physical degradation, as we touched upon. And we'll have a look at how long the tyres can potentially last for. And the softs, I think, are lasting a little bit longer physically than what the mediums and hards are at most circuits. So the gap, the fall off isn't as large as what it would normally be. There's quite a decent spread. We'll have a look at that in a minute. So starting on the softs might not be too bad. And of course, track position, clean air is still king. So if you get some clean air and maybe do an undercut, you can gain track position, and we will see. It's still a bit of unknown, as we touched upon, on how the overtake mode and the overtaking is going to be here. In years gone by, overtaking has been quite comfortable here. You've been able to achieve that with the DRS, but there's no longer any DRS in action. Everyone has access to the active aero mode. It depends on how effective the slipstream and the overtake mode is going to be, which I do think it will be, but we will see. So undercut is always powerful at the Red Bull ring, so that's why some might be started on the soft compound tyre. And then at the bottom we have a free stop strategy. So it'd be interesting to see if anyone at the top, i.e. Antonelli or the two Ferraris, decide to start maybe on the softs, like we saw Hamilton do, which raised an eyebrow, didn't it? It's especially for me, he raised an eyebrow when he started on the softs at Barcelona. Will he be doing something similar here? Time will tell. Only about 20 minutes or so in the last 5 minutes is when we'll find out who has what tyre to start on. So those are the strategy options. Definitely going to be really good racing ahead of us. Always better when we have a two-stop race, really. Provides more intrigue, that's for sure. And at a circuit where it is overtaking is possible. So let's have a look at the tyres that are available for teams today. And interesting, very interesting. Verstappen is the only driver who has two brand new mediums. Hadjar has two brand new mediums, as does the V-Carb. So it's only the Red Bulls that have brand new mediums available. So Isaac Hadjar here is already pretty much roped into or locked into doing a two-stop with two mediums. He hasn't got two brand new hards available. He may go for that free stop. Verstappen, Verstappen and Red Bull. If they've got the pace here today, keep an eye out on Red Bull, because they can do whatever strategy they like today. They really can. Remember, just going back to them, we've got two-stop strategy of the medium, hard, hard, or the medium, hard, medium. Or you've got the soft, medium, hard. Like, Max can use any single one of these strategies today. Whereas Hadjar is locked in to doing if he wants to do a two-stop, he can't use two hards. Whereas Russell, Leclerc, Hamilton, Antonelli, they've all committed to really that first strategy. That first strategy. If a two-stop, they can't use two mediums because they don't have them available. So that's intriguing for this race today. And then as you move down, of course, Gasly has one brand new set of softs to use there because he didn't make it into Q3. He also has a brand new set of hards. So it's interesting. There's quite a split in the field. The top 7 cars, Piastri, Norris, Verstappen, Antonelli, Hamilton, Leclerc, Russell, have all got two brand new hards available. Everyone else only has one. So that's intriguing today. But Max is the only one who has that true flexibility when it comes to strategy. So yeah, keep an eye on Max. If he has the race pace in that Red Bull, and it's a big if, of course, then he could play, he could get in the mix today, just purely through strategy. So let's have a look at that tyre degradation, and what you can see here, that there's quite an even split, isn't there, with the degradation across a lap. And that's mainly because of the physical degradation, of course. The track is in the middle range of its abrasiveness, but there's not a lot of corners here that really hurt the tyres in that sense, like it did at Barcelona. There's a lot more high-speed corners. So the soft average fall-off is about just over a tenth per lap. The medium is a tenth per lap, so you're talking 0.03 seconds difference between the soft and medium. And the hard compound tyre, also 0.03. So you're talking 0.03 of a second difference between each tyre there, the gap in between each tyre. And that's quite minimal, really. That's quite minimal. And that's why, going back to the strategy options, why the soft has been presented. Of course, the soft is not going to last as long at the start of the race as it will at the end of the race, because you're on higher fuel compared to low fuel. But that's why the soft we might see more drivers start on that soft today than what we normally would do. So looking at the race pace that's been gathered from this weekend in the practice sessions, interestingly, Ferrari third fastest there, but Ferrari haven't really showed their hand when it comes to race pace. They didn't put the new engine in their car until yesterday, and even then they didn't really do too much long runs. So I think they have been hiding a bit of their true race pace, Ferrari. I do expect them to be quicker than McLaren, but understandably Mercedes have set the pace here this weekend, that is for sure, and they will be the team to beat. Red Bull there, not looking too great for them. Racing Bulls and Alpine, I'm expecting a good race between them for the last point scoring positions today. And everyone else seems to be a bit far off of it. Audi don't look too shabby here. Haas, don't look too good here. Haas also don't look too good. Williams are well off the pace. Cadillac, I'm intrigued to see if their updates do provide any pace here. It looks, hopefully they'll become to be able to beat Aston Martin, who are, yeah, no updates from them at all. And then, the all-important pit lane stop-loss time, guys. Green flag conditions, 20 seconds. So on the shorter end of the scale of time lost in the pit lane. So 20 seconds, that's why the free stop is a viable strategy here. And then pitting under the VSC safety car. We saw Lewis Hamilton gain first place last time around, didn't we? Because of that cheap pit stop under the VSC, while everyone else is trudging around at a reduced speed. That is why there is a decrease in time taken in the pit lane because in loss compared to your teammates. So 10.5 seconds stationary there compared to 20 seconds while everyone's going so fast. So there is a 50% chance that we've seen in the last 7 years here of a safety car and 40% chance of a VSC. No red flags, which is interesting. Really, I feel like I've seen so many more red flags than I actually should have done. So, yeah, I think there's definitely going to be VSCs here today. I think there's going to be lots of DNFs like we saw in Barcelona. The heat is going to play havoc. The higher altitude as well is going to make these engines and these cars work so much harder. And, yeah, I think we're going to see a few breakdowns today. Maybe a few collisions as well, as the Red Bull Ring doesn't tend to provide that. So those are your strategy options for today. That is Strategy Corner. And, well, I think it's shaping up to be a real good one today. How do Cadillac and Aston Martin compared to Formula 2? They're even on that level. They are quicker, but yeah, they're not great, are they? The sauce will only last 13 laps. Maybe, probably. But then that might be sufficient for some teams. It really might. Technically speaking, the lighter your car gets, the longer the tyres will last for, because there's less energy being put through them. Less weight. On a side note, can't believe I just found out that there was an actual F1 driver named Scott Speed. Yeah. Great name, isn't it? It would have been, obviously, you could say kind of maybe wasted motorsport career, but like, if he was anything but a racing driver, what a waste. With a name like that, with a last name like that in particular. How do I think the strategy will differ compared to Leclerc and Hamilton? It's a very good question. I don't know. I think it all depends on the confidence in Ferrari's pace, their race pace. If they feel like they can maybe take it to Mercedes, they might start on the same strategy. Because I guess the thing is that you don't have to start on the softs to out-strategize Mercedes today, because you look at the tyres that are available, they've all got the same tyres available. So yes, they're either going to do strategy number one here, option number one, which is the medium hard, or they're going to do maybe they could do this one here, start on the softs, which is a bit more aggressive, offsetting. I don't know. The undercut is going to be powerful. So if Antonelli can't get past the Ferraris early today, then they'll do the undercut for sure. But if Ferrari can stay with them, the Mercedes today, then they have the opportunity to do the undercut. So there's lots of opportunity to here today for strategy. I think Ferrari are going to be aggressive. Listening to Hamilton yesterday, he was saying he was saying, not sure we're going to be able to win the race on pace alone, but we can do something to try and win this race tomorrow. From strategy, he said there are things that we can do. So I think personally they will be on a split strategy. I think they're going to try and do something different, but we'll see. We'll see. So that's race control messages. Let's have a look at the championship standings currently as well. Always good to have a reminder of where everyone sits before the race begins. So, Kimi Antonelli leads by 41 points over Lewis Hamilton after that DNF in Barcelona and Lewis Hamilton's win. So, he is 41 points behind. Lewis Hamilton is 9 points ahead of George Russell, who finished P2. So, that gap has closed at the top between the front three. Charles Leclerc, who had a DNF also in Barcelona, 2 DNFs in a row for him, means that he is on 75 points and is 81 points behind Kimi Antonelli. Is that 81 points behind Kimi Antonelli? That is 80 points behind Kimi Antonelli. I think that is, if my maths is correct there. So a big margin between Leclerc and Antonelli already in the championship. Lando Norris, 73 points for him. He's 2 points behind Charles Leclerc after Charles Leclerc's 2 DNFs in a row. And Lando Norris picked up a... Lando Norris would be so much higher if he didn't have DNFs, right? He'd be so much higher, but there we go. Piastri, 68 points. Verstappen, 55 points. Already 101 points behind Antonelli. Oof. Pierre Gasly in 8th, leading the best of the rest. Isaac Hadjar in 9th. I say best of the rest. He's ahead of Isaac Hadjar, who's in 9th in that Red Bull. Liam Lawson in 10th. Behrman is 11th. 10-point gap between Lawson and Behrman in 10th and 11th. Colapinto, 12th. Lindblad, 13th. V-Carb, of course, going for 3 races in a row where they can score double points. Carlos Sainz in 14th. Albon, 15th. Ocon 16th, Bortoletto 17th, Alonso 18th, Hulkenberg going still trying to find that elusive 1 point. Still trying to find that elusive 1 point. Mad to think that he hasn't scored points yet, and he is with Bottas, Perez, and Stroll as pointless this season. Mercedes lead Ferrari by is that 70 points there, 72 points over Mercedes. So the Constructors isn't out and isn't done and dusted yet either. Ferrari is staying within touching distance. McLaren on 141 points. They're quite a large margin ahead of Red Bull, which is wild to think. You think when McLaren have actually been able to start races and finish them, they have scored some decent points, but that is why they're so far behind. But it's still within touching distance of Ferrari as well, which is quite interesting. Alpine in 5th. They are 16 points ahead of Racing Bulls. Haas in 7th. Williams in 8th. Audi with 2 points. Aston Martin on 1 point. And Cadillac still yet to score a single point. But there we go. I think there could be opportunities today for the likes of Cadillac and teams who just keep it clean. Teams just keep it clean today. And there is opportunities for them to score, I think, some good points. I think it really is going to be like that today. And with strategy, so... You know it's very risky due to temp, so can you switch hards in between? Maybe. Do I think Kimi is going to take down Max like last year? No, I don't think so. But there's a potential of a collision at the first corner. Never say never. The third corner. Never say never. The first corner, not so much, because drivers always take to the escape road there. But turn 3 is definitely something where someone could make a mistake. Do you think if they were on the same strategy and they have the gap for a double stack, they would for Hamilton and Leclerc? Probably not. No, probably not. It depends. It's all about maths. It depends on the time loss difference. So would staying out an extra lap, whoever is ahead or whoever's behind, would staying out an extra lap, would that time loss over that lap be better or worse than doing the double stack? That's the maths that the guys on the pit wall will be working. So let's say there's an average. Let's say you lose 3 seconds by staying out an extra lap because of the pace difference. But then you lose only 2.5 seconds doing the double stack. I don't think that'd be the case. I think always the double stack would be. I do think always the double, if you're trying to do an undercut especially, the double stack is just not viable, really. The Mercedes would be able to respond to that and they'd easily cover it off. Whereas if you stay out an extra lap, I don't think you're going to lose that much time compared to doing a double stack. What would Merck cook with the strategy if they learn from their Barcelona mistake? Maybe. I think there is a weakness in Mercedes, though, in relation to their strategy. They've never been the strongest when it comes to strategy in their pit stops. So there's an opportunity today. And look, as I'm saying before, if Antonelli clears the Ferraris comfortably, we could still have a very, very interesting race on our hands. It doesn't necessarily need the Ferraris involved today to make it an interesting race. We have seen teammates collide here in the past. 2 Mercedes teammates, Rosberg and Hamilton, collide here in the past. We saw Piastri and Norris have a great battle here last year. We saw Verstappen and Norris the year before that. So this track provides racing. And Russell and Antonelli will want to win this race. Antonelli will want to claw back some of the points that he lost in Barcelona. And Russell will want to close down that gap on Antonelli on a weekend where he has been a step behind. So that could be perfect for Ferrari. The two drivers collide, something happens, you never know. Russ and Kimi exactly could get messy. Thank you very much, Ferrari. 1-2. It's happened before, and it very well could happen today. And I think I would be very, very surprised if we don't see Russell and Kimi at least collide once throughout this season. What could be the safety car strat? Oh, I don't know, to be honest with you. It all depends when the safety car comes out. But anyone, if you are able to pit under a safety car, drivers will. Because it just makes sense, because it's a cheap pit stop. And you're going to be on fresh tyres, and you're going to comfortably make that time up out on track. Formula edits. 5 is that Aussie dollars? 5 Aussie dollars. Love my watch-alongs, mate. Keep up the work. Thank you, buddy. Much appreciated. Yes, guys, if you enjoy the watch-alongs and you keep tuning back in, thank you, thank you. We're only 9 minutes away from the Austrian GP formation lap getting underway. Hit the like and subscribe button if you can. It'd be much appreciated. We are currently on 357 likes. Go on. Get this stream up to 1,000 likes before it begins. That'd be great. It does help the live stream get pushed out to a wider audience, which helps continue the growth of this channel and bring me a step closer to making this full time and bringing you more content. I'd love nothing more to do that. But in the meantime, love what I'm doing. And yeah, we are at nearly 84,800 subs. So yeah, it'd be great if we could get ever closer to 90k and, of course, ever closer to the big milestone of 100k. Imagine Max sends it out completely. It could do. Yeah, I think Max is going to be aggressive at the start. You know he is. If he gets a good launch as well, he doesn't care about a championship. He wants a win, and there's options here today for strategy for Max. It just depends whether the Red Bull has the race pace. The next best thing to watching the race is YouTube. Is this YouTube? Thank you. Risk of rain is 10%. There's a little bit in the air. There's a little bit in the air. What are my rumors on? What are my thoughts on the rumors about Max joining the Papayas? I think there's little to it, to be honest with you. I think there really is little to it. Right, I'm going to end the poll, actually, guys. I'm going to end the poll of who you think is going to win the race. Because it looks like the majority of you think Lewis Hamilton will win this race today. 47%, Russell 18%, Antonelli 18%, and Charles Leclerc 17%. So very close behind. So I'm going to run a different poll in just a second. You've watched my streams for 2 years. Oh, thank you. I'm a sport. What's it like now that you're reaching streams of 100k total viewers compared to a couple of years ago? It is wild. It is wild, but it is just a number. It's more nerve-wracking, and it's more eye-opening, I guess, and surreal when you stream to your first 100 viewers and then to your first 1,000 viewers. And then after that, like it is just a number. You are just people behind a screen, same as me. I'm just in a screen. If I was streaming in front of a stadium, then yeah, that's a very, very different thing. That's like, oh my God, there's all these eyeballs on me. But no, I try not to think about it. You very quickly become accustomed to it. I don't take it for granted at all. Really appreciate the love and people coming back and tuning in. I love doing this as well, and it translates to you guys and obviously what we provide. So yeah, but that's how I experienced it. And then anything kind of above then is just kind of, yeah, it's just numbers and stuff, isn't it? So where do you get all these stats? YouTube. You get them for like YouTube analytics. If you've got a YouTube channel, Twitch channel, you get basically all your analytics after you do a stream, like all your views, etc. throughout a month and blah, blah, blah. But right, what was I going to do? I was going to run one more poll anyway. Enough about me. How many... Oh, because I think there's going to be a lot today. Let's go... I'm going to go that. I don't think anyone will vote for that. Let's go... And let's go... over 6. There we go. How many DNFs do you think there's going to be today? Maybe I've gone on the shorter end of things here, but bearing in mind we saw 7 DNFs at Barcelona. 7. Did we see 7 or did we see technically 6 because Alex Albon did come back out of the pits, didn't he? For his T camera thing. 4 DNFs, you think 7 here too? I think there's going to be over 6. I'm not going to lie to you. I think there'll be over 6. I just think the altitude here is going to play havoc. It is cooling off. So the track temperature is 46.3 degrees. But here we go. We have tyres. And, oh, okay. So, no risks being taken at the front of the grid here. George Russell, everyone basically from George Russell, first place, down to 11th of Pierre Gasly are starting on the mediums. We have only 2 drivers starting on the soft compound tyres. That is Gabriel Bortoleto and Carlos Sainz in 12th and 17th. So they are rolling the dice maybe a little bit, but everyone starting on the medium compound tyres and leaving themselves open to that flexibility of the 2-stop or maybe a 3-stop towards the end of the race. I think that's smart, to be honest with you. I think the softs, look, you want the softs when your car is lighter towards the end of a race so that they're longer lasting. That's really where you want it. But the medium, as we said here before, the 2-stop has always been the most viable strategy. Medium, hard, medium is what we've seen in countless years gone by. But the top teams here don't. Only Max Verstappen has 2 brand new mediums to use. Everyone else has 2 brand new hards. So Max is the only outlier here in relation to strategy in the top 10. Oh, thank you, Tim Page. Have a coffee, mate. I will do. Thank you. That'll go on my Starbucks tomorrow morning. Starbucks Costa. See what I feel in the mood for. Nice caramel latte in the morning. And my first day back at work for 2 weeks. So, but right. Quick loop break for myself, everyone. I suggest you guys do the same as we have only 3 minutes until the formation lap gets underway. Tyre blankets are off. Only 2 drivers starting on the softs. But there is a lot of racing and intrigue for the strategy ahead of us. We'll be back in a jiffy. Right. I am ready. I am ready. Are you ready? 1.5 minutes to go. 1 minute 30. That was quick. Don't worry. I did wash my hands. All right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. As always, if you could get this stream to 1,000 likes before the race begins, go on, do it. 630 likes right now. It's 5,000 of you here in the stream for this race starts. Who is going to come out on top here at the end at the Austrian Grand Prix? It's going to be an intriguing one, that is for sure. So let's have one more reminder of the live championship standings. I'll keep you updated on the permutations throughout the race. Of course, stick around at the end of the race to see what our initial reactions are to it. I'm sure there'll be some incidents and some talking points for us to review and go back over. And of course, we'll have a look at the actual championship standings once this race ends. So Kimi Antonelli leads by 41 points over Lewis Hamilton. He is starting one position behind Lewis Hamilton. Of course, George Russell is in third place. He is looking to try and close that gap on Antonelli for the second race in a row after Antonelli had that DNF. Will the Mercedes last today? We will see. Charles Leclerc looking to actually finish a race for the first time in 2 race weekends as he's in fourth and already a whole heap of points behind Antonelli and even his teammate. Lando Norris is only two points behind. Max Verstappen is 55 points. He's 101 points behind Antonelli. He starts fifth and he'll be looking to try and have a good race today with maybe something a bit different in strategy compared to everyone else. And then Mercedes still leading that Constructors' Championship, but Ferrari staying in touch of them. So that is the championship standings as it currently stands. We'll keep you updated on those. And I'll keep you updated on track limits and so forth and investigations as well. Oh. There we go. There we go. Oh, right. How many? I did do a poll of how many DNFs do you think there's going to be today. I'm going to end that now as the formation lap is underway here at the Austrian Grand Prix. 46% of you think they'd 1 to 3, 34% think 4 to 5, over 6, 16%, and none, 4%. You have a lot of faith. But anyway, let's have a review of our starting grid for today. It is George Russell on pole position in quite controversial circumstances yesterday, but he did do nothing wrong as per the letter of the law. He starts on pole position. Charles Leclerc starts P2, Lewis Hamilton P3, and Kimi Antonelli P4. He did lift off at the end, thinking it was a double yellow, and incorrectly so. He now starts on the second row, 3 positions behind his teammate. Max Verstappen in the barrier yesterday at the end, which brought out those controversial yellows. He starts P5, but he does have an intact Red Bull. No starting from the pit lane, thankfully, for him. Lando Norris in P6 and Piastri in P7. Isaac Hadjar is starting P8. Thank you for joining the pit crew, by the way, Ed Will. Much appreciated. Liam Lawson and Arvid Emblad start 9th and 10th. They are looking for their 3rd straight successive race of double points for the V-Carb. Pierre Gasly starts in P11. We know he's strong in that Alpine. Expect him to be chasing points today. Gabriel Bortoletto, only one of 2 soft starters today. He starts P12. Behrman in 13th. Hulkenberg 14th, still seeking his first points of the championship. Esteban Ocon in 15th, Colapinto 16th, Carlos Sainz, that 2nd soft runner to start today, in 17th in a struggling Williams. Albon starts 18th, Perez is 19th, Bottas 20th, Alonso 21st, and Lance Stroll is in 22nd. That is your starting grid for today. Interestingly enough, as they all finished qualifying yesterday. No one starting from the pit lane. That's the first time in quite some time we have seen no issues at the start of a race or a start of a formation lap. So everyone is going to be starting from their grid slot. So I think that's only happened a couple of times this year, actually, in this 2026 season. So all 22 cars will be starting on their starting positions. But how many will finish the first lap? We have seen many incidents here before at this circuit. Turn 1, normally they take to the escape road on the outside, but it is turn 3, where it's a very acute angle there. We saw last year Kimi Antonelli lose control of his car and wipe out Max Verstappen. How all-important that was in the overall grand scheme of things to his championship contentions last year. Could a similar incident occur today, which has a similar effect in the finishing positions of the championship? As Lance Stroll lines up at the back, we will have the pre-start procedure underway. I've mistimed that terribly again. Well, there we go. It's green light. Away we go at the Red Bull Ring for the Austrian Grand Prix. And who leads into the first corner? George Russell, side by side with Charles Leclerc into the first corner. But it's all about the run now, up into turn 3. They are, as they started, all the top 12 here, apart from Bortoletto, who gets past Pierre Gasly. But here we go. Charles late on the brakes into turn 3. Is he able to get ahead of the Mercedes of George Russell? They're side by side. Hamilton looking to capitalise here with Antonelli in his rear view mirror. And Russell stays ahead of Charles Leclerc as they head down into turn 4. But now that leaves Charles Leclerc vulnerable from his teammate in second in the championship. Is he going to come out second at turn 4? No, he holds on to the position. No, Charles Leclerc loses the position to Lewis Hamilton as they're side by side into turn 6. And Lewis, I think, is still side by side the two Ferrari drivers here. And Charles Leclerc has to concede the position to his teammate, and Lewis Hamilton into P2. Charles Leclerc went for the move on George Russell into turn 3, left himself vulnerable, and now he's vulnerable to Kimi Antonelli as well, as overtake is enabled as they round the last corner for the first time to complete lap 1 here at the Red Bull Ring. George Russell P1 leading from Lewis Hamilton in P2, Charles Leclerc P3. And what a move. Well, Charles Leclerc really got shoved out by George Russell there earlier on, as Kimi Antonelli also went really wide into turn 3. But George Russell, is he come to a stop? Surely not. George Russell has not come to a stop there. That is just the delay of the track map there. I thought there was another reliability issue there as Charles Leclerc is trading positions with Kimi Antonelli as Lewis Hamilton is trying to make a move on George Russell. And look at Max Verstappen. He wants to get involved here. It could be 3 wide as they head down into turn 4. Is this a double overtake for Max Verstappen? He's side by side with Charles Leclerc. He's just dispatched Kimi Antonelli. And well, he's looking to try and get 2 in 2 corners here as he's ahead of Charles Leclerc into turn 6. And just in 2 corners, Max Verstappen has gone from P5 into P3. A double overtake. We wondered whether overtaking would be far and few between here with the removal of DRS and with the addition of overtake mode. And we have just been proven in just 2 laps that overtaking is well and truly possible here as Lewis Hamilton stays within the slipstream of George Russell as they are 1.9 seconds importantly from Max Verstappen behind in P3. Charles Leclerc P4 with Kimi Antonelli now in P5. Oscar Piastri is up in position over his teammate in P6 with Lando Norris in P7 as we have Lawson in P8 as well, looking to try and actually capitalise on the McLarens ahead. Hadjar is down a position into P9. Ocon is up 4 places. The biggest loser here I think was Colapinto, who's down 3 places into P19. As Lewis Hamilton set the fastest lap of the race last time around with a 1:12.028 compared to George Russell's 1:12.0, but he's not able to just really overtake Russell right now. But a very long way going in this race, as Antonelli has been noted for turn 1 incident in leaving the track and gaining an advantage. So Kimi Antonelli, who is down in P5 at the moment and would only be gaining 10 points today, and Hamilton would be gaining 18 and Russell 25 as it stands. Is under investigation here, so we'll see a review of that to see exactly what has happened. But Russell leads by 0.6 of a second over Lewis Hamilton with that gap bridging and opening right now between the 2 former teammates to Max Verstappen in P3. Charles Leclerc is down 2 places after not a bad pole start really, as also Antonelli has been noted for turn 3 incident, leaving the track and gaining an advantage also right now. So Kimi Antonelli is under investigation for the first couple of corners here for leaving the track and gaining an advantage. He was currently in P5, looking to try and get past Leclerc, who is unable to stay with Lewis Hamilton up ahead as Arvid Lindblad set the fastest first sector of all, as there's now a bit of a gap forming between Norris and Liam Lawson there, the rest of the best of the rest at the moment, as Isaac Hadjar is looking to try and get past Lawson, his former teammate, as he is in the big Red Bull team. As Hamilton not able to match the same lap time there as George Russell last time around, but he is 0.8 behind George Russell. Remember, no DRS here this time around. Everyone has use of the activation of the active aero. As a bit of a delay there in George Russell's transponder, which always seems to be the case on Georgie's car. He is not having issues whatsoever as Franco Colapinto breezes past Sergio Perez there at the down from turn 3 to turn 4, as Isaac Hadjar also dispatches Liam Lawson there down into turn 6. So Liam Lawson picking his battles wisely. Of course, he'd love to beat the big team, but he is in that V-carb. And you do suspect Hadjar now will be able to look at the back of the McLaren of Lando Norris and try and close up. But interestingly, Kimi Antonelli not able to make any progression on Charles Leclerc, who is 1.5 seconds behind Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen now closing down Lewis Hamilton. 1.8 seconds is the gap with a fastest middle sector. Lewis Hamilton just losing that 1 second range of overtake mode to George Russell. He will not have it be able to be activated this time around. And this is what George Russell will be seeking now, to try and bridge a gap and build a gap to the Ferrari behind. But you can see there Max Verstappen losing a bit of time as they make their way down into turn 3. But Lewis Hamilton, with that big slipstream up into turn 3, is able to be a bit later on the brakes. So no further investigation for Antonelli in turn 1 and turn 3. Swiftly, Antonelli has had his investigations wiped away, and as we speak of that, Antonelli is closing down very closely on Charles Leclerc, who is who's only a tenth ahead of Kimi Antonelli right now, as Charles Leclerc did a 17.5 first sector and Kimi Antonelli did a 17.236. So using maybe the overtake mode there, Kimi Antonelli in that very powerful Mercedes engine. Very long way still to go in this race today, as there are 67 laps remaining of the Austrian Grand Prix. George Russell leads by Lewis Hamilton by 1.1 seconds. Max Verstappen is up 2 places after a brilliant double overtake in 2 corners. As Sergio Perez says he has lots of smoke in the pit. I think we've got a double retirement for Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas. We have a double retirement for Cadillac, and it's not even been 6 laps. Oh my goodness. Big updates here this weekend for Cadillac, and a real shame for them that their race has come to a very premature weekend. Perez retired and Bottas retired within 5 laps of this 71 lap race here at the Red Bull Ring. But running through the grid once again, we have Max Verstappen in P3, Leclerc is P4, Antonelli is P5. The only driver in the top 8 cars on the top teams who is trying to close down, who's really closing down the gap of the car ahead, but unable to get past Charles Leclerc at the moment, even after multiple fastest first sector times. Oscar Piastri is P6 with 1.1 seconds behind Antonelli. Norris is 1.2 seconds behind his teammate as well in P7. Isaac Hadjar now trying to close the gap on Lando Norris after he lost the position to Lawson at the start of this race. Lawson and Lindblad in 9th and 10th. Lindblad staying very closely with his teammate, the V-Carbs, undoubtedly probably wanting to work together at the early stages of this race to try and solidify their 3rd point scoring race, double point scoring race in a row. Esteban Ocon is up 4 places as well into P11. A great start from him. Bortoleto is 12th with Gasly in 13th, Hulkenberg 14th, Behrman 15th, Sainz 16th, Albon 17th, Colapinto 18th, Alonso 19th, Stroll 20th, and a double retirement for Cadillac in Perez and Bottas. But Lewis Hamilton lost a bit of time there on the last lap, Lewis Hamilton, as he did a 1:12.4. So a mistake for Lewis Hamilton last time around has allowed Max Verstappen to really close up the gap here on his former rival, as Lewis Hamilton is now 1.8 seconds behind George Russell, and Verstappen is now within the 1 second range of that overtake mode. But it's not easy to overtake here. But Antonelli is much closer to Charles Leclerc this time around. Big run down into turn 4. Charles Leclerc is going to go defensive. Will Antonelli have the pace to be able to go round Charles Leclerc into turn 4? They're still side by side, and Charles Leclerc stays ahead of Antonelli for now, as Antonelli has to back out. But with the extra battery that Antonelli has, he looks for a move on Charles Leclerc as they go side by side into the entry of turn 6, and Charles holds on to the position for now, and Antonelli has to back off. And all the while, this has allowed Oscar Piastri to close in on Leclerc and Antonelli, fighting for P4 and P5. But Charles Leclerc, is he going to get overtaken into turn 9 as the Mercedes does send it into turn 9? Charles cannot hold off Antonelli for any longer there. We saw the Mercedes very quick in the last sector yesterday, and well, Antonelli has just shown us there as Lando Norris has he's falling through the pack there. No, that's just a transponder issue, as Lando Norris is still 7th on the grid, and Charles Leclerc is falling through the field here and could be vulnerable to Oscar Piastri now. What has happened to Charles Leclerc? Has he killed his tyres too much? He has got into some early battles in this race, as it was such an easy pass from Kimi Antonelli down into turn 9. We don't often see overtakes there, but with, of course, the implementation of the battery and how the power distribution works in this formula right now, in Formula 1 this year, we can see how some overtaking opportunities are occurring at corners that we don't normally see. But Max Verstappen is on the rear of the Ferrari of Lewis Hamilton, who is P2 at the moment, with Antonelli 3.6 seconds behind. Antonelli has some clean air ahead of him, so we'll see the pace of the Mercedes in clean air at this stage of the race. We know that Antonelli is a very quick driver, and let's see how quickly he is able to close in on Verstappen and Hamilton, who are 3.4 seconds up the road. Lewis Hamilton, though, 2.7 seconds behind George Russell. He's losing quite a bit of time on those mediums, as George Russell in that clean air did a 1.12 last time around, and that gap is 2.7 seconds ahead at the moment. Still not quite sure how the Mercedes power unit is the slowest, not slowest, is slower than the Red Bull, as Hamilton reports the car is moving quite a bit at the moment on the circuit. So Hamilton complaining about lack of grip at the moment on the medium compound tyre. Is it because of blistering? Looking at the TV footage, I can't see. There's a bit of blistering on his left rear at the moment, Lewis Hamilton. So he's starting to lose quite a bit of grip on those mediums. So Lewis Hamilton could potentially be pitting soon. But it is a 20-second pit stop gap here, of course. It's too early to pit right now. As that is the gap that he will be looking for. He'll be hoping that someone like Esteban Ocon or the midfield teams will be pitting sooner rather than later, as there are track limits violations for Norris, Antonelli, Leclerc, Stroll and Hamilton, one apiece. Of course, Antonelli has picked up quite a numerous amount of track limits violations in previous races. He'll be hoping that he doesn't pick up a 5-second time penalty this time around, as he is on the limit at the moment. 3.2 seconds is the gap between himself and Max Verstappen, who is 6/10 behind Lewis Hamilton and not able to get past the Ferrari at the moment, who is sliding around somewhat. But the pace is starting to balance out a bit with those top drivers. Antonelli is the fastest driver on circuit, as Leclerc has been told. Tyre degradation as expected. Tyre degradation as expected has been noted by the engineer of Charles Leclerc, as he is currently in P5, 1.1 seconds ahead of Oscar Piastri and 2 seconds behind Antonelli, who is pushing, really pushing Max a lot closer this time around. But you can see the rear traction of that Red Bull as he is closing and closing on Hamilton down into turn 4, but not close enough to go for a send there into that corner. Of course, Verstappen is in 7th place in the driver's standings at the moment. Is there an outside potential of Max Verstappen winning this race today? He's the only driver out there who has 2 brand new mediums to utilise today. And he has 2 brand new hards to utilise as well. So Max Verstappen has a lot of flexibility in which strategies he wants to run today compared to those around him, and that could play an important role come the end of this Austrian Grand Prix with 62 laps remaining. George Russell crosses the line for the 10th time in this race. He leads by 3.3 seconds over Lewis Hamilton, who is starting to fall back. He is 6/10 ahead, Lewis Hamilton, of Max Verstappen in P3 after a great overtake of 2 cars in 2 corners of Charles Leclerc and Kimi Antonelli. Down into turn 4 and then into turn 6 was Max Verstappen. As George Russell has been told, Verstappen could trigger this early. He is very close to Lewis. Every extra second we can get. So George is on push at the moment as Max Verstappen goes for a move on Lewis Hamilton. They're side by side out of the exit of turn 3, and Max Verstappen comes out ahead of Lewis Hamilton into turn 3. But I think he might have gone wide there, Max Verstappen, and gone deep into the corner, as it looks like he's had to relinquish the position to Lewis Hamilton. As I'm watching the replay here, as Max Verstappen is complaining he has really bad brake pulling, as Lewis did get the rear stepping out, as they're still side by side, and Max comes back at Lewis into turn 6, as Max did go deep into the corner and forced Lewis Hamilton nearly off of the racing circuit. They're still side by side. Oh my goodness, great race in between the 2 10-time drivers champion, 11 world titles between them, as Max Verstappen massively locked up down into turn 4. It was fair, actually, and respectful racing between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. He left Lewis Hamilton room down into turn 3. Lewis Hamilton came back at him down into turn 4, and they were side by side down into turn 5. Brilliant racing, and all the while, this is just lending its hand to Kimi Antonelli, who is now 1.26 seconds behind that of the 2 former champions here of Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen, fighting for this podium position. It allows Charles Leclerc to close up as well, and it allows, importantly, George Russell a 5.3 second advantage here at this stage of the race with 60 laps remaining. Lewis Hamilton still just able to stay ahead of Max Verstappen there. into turn 4. The overtake mode will be enabled next time around, and Antonelli is going to be on the back of these two sooner rather than later. But actually, as Lewis Hamilton says, that as Verstappen is claiming it's a clear penalty. He is claiming that he was forced off of the track into turn 7. We will see if that will be investigated or not. You need to see it back from a different angle. I think it was just fair and respectful racing, to be honest with you. We will see whether or not there will be a penalty there. And as Lewis Hamilton pulls the trigger and pits first. Lewis Hamilton pits first. So we thought it might be Max. We thought it might be Charles or anyone else. But Lewis Hamilton pits first. He's lost a whole heap of time to George Russell up ahead. And on the 13th lap of this race, Lewis Hamilton pits. And is there a gap here? There clearly seems to be a gap between himself and Esteban Ocon, who is rounding the last corner now as Lewis Hamilton comes out of the pit lane. And what tyre is Lewis Hamilton going to be on? He's going to be on the hard compound tyre. So this is going to be undoubtedly a medium hard strategy for Lewis Hamilton, barring maybe any safety cars. We'll see how that fares. And there we go, slots in behind Gabriel Bortoleto. So let's see how this fares for Lewis Hamilton and the rest of the field. Will Max Verstappen respond, or will he just be happy he's got some clean air ahead of him? Kimi Antonelli will be hoping that Max does pit sooner rather than later, so that he has clean air as well and doesn't have to get stuck behind a Red Bull. As I'm watching a replay of the race start, as Charles Leclerc did make a good start to this race, but unfortunately has just found himself getting caught in some very early battles, which just left him susceptible to losing multiple positions in quick succession. He is currently P4 at the moment, but really net 5th place, as Lewis Hamilton has made a pit stop already. Will Charles Leclerc respond? Charles Leclerc comes in following Lewis Hamilton. So lap after lap here, 2 successive laps that the Ferraris have decided to pit. And well, as Lewis Hamilton is told on the radio, let's go, by his engineer, as Lewis Hamilton is looking to overtake Gabriel Bortoleto before they even get up into turn 1. It'll probably be a comfortable overtake for Lewis Hamilton down here on the Audi, who hasn't been really at the races when we think about it. But it's quite early for Hamilton and Charles Leclerc to pit out here. As Charles Leclerc, is he going to get out ahead of Esteban Ocon? And it's a good pit stop, a good double pit stop there for Ferrari to see a gap and get out early there. So we will see whether or not this will pay dividends come the end of the race. But it doesn't seem like anyone has decided to respond to Ferrari yet, as George Russell leads by 5.5 seconds from Max Verstappen in P2. Kimi Antonelli is P3, and he is 1.3 seconds behind the Red Bull of Max Verstappen, as he loses a bit of time there on the exit of turn 7, Kimi Antonelli. Oscar Piastri is 5.4 seconds behind Kimi Antonelli, with Lando Norris 1.1 seconds behind his teammate, as he has been since he lost that place to his teammate at the start of this race. Isaac Hadjar is 1.7 seconds behind Lando Norris in P6, and Liam Lawson starting to pull away from Lindblad now, who is in P8, so 2.7 second gap between the two V-carbs. Lewis Hamilton is in 9th. He has made a pit stop, as has his teammate Charles Leclerc, who is a position, 2 positions behind him. He got out ahead of Esteban Ocon, as Hamilton and Leclerc did get ahead of Esteban Ocon. Gabriel Bortoleto now decides to come into the pit lane. No, Gabriel Bortoleto is staying out there, and he's gone very long on this tyre. It seems Gabriel Bortoleto on the soft compound tyre. Esteban Ocon still holding off Nico Hülkenberg at the moment. Hülkenberg really coming unstuck, as Hamilton and Verstappen has been noted for forcing another driver off of the racing surface. So we will need to see a replay of whether or not that will be penalised by Lewis Hamilton. So set the scene for you guys. They were side by side as they went into turn 7, on the exit of turn 7, and that's where Max Verstappen felt he was forced off of the racing surface. From the angle that I saw, it's difficult to say who was ahead and who wasn't, whether Max was entitled to room or not, because it was a face on really kind of difficult angle to see. So I need to see a replay of it before I make a judgment, but it has been noted for investigation for forcing another driver off of the track, as Lewis Hamilton, one of the only 3 drivers to make an early pit stop here. Pierre Gasly has also made a pit stop, as he is in 19th place. We'll see if there is a replay for that, and once I do see it, I will let you guys know. But George Russell leads by 5.4 seconds from Max Verstappen. Kimi Antonelli is P3. He is 1.6 seconds unable to close that gap on Max now. So Antonelli maybe just dropping back to try and conserve some tyres here. As it stands, if they were to finish in their current positions, George Russell would be gaining 10 points on Kimi Antonelli, 25 to 15. Lewis Hamilton would only gain 2 because he's in 9th place, but we know that will probably not be the case come the end of the race. But the top 2, yes, if they finish first and third, there'll be a 10-point gain for George Russell over Kimi Antonelli. George Russell would move up into P2 and Lewis Hamilton would be P3. So need to see a replay of this battle between Lewis Hamilton and see this battle between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen to see exactly who was ahead. As here we go. So now seeing a replay of this, as we'll keep an eye on whether anyone's going to be coming into the pits. So who was ahead here, as they've got drone footage and they've decided to go to a on-track overtake they've moved away from the replay and gone to an on-track overtake of Lewis Hamilton on Arvid Lindblad there, as he comfortably overtook him down into turn 3. Esteban Ocon and Nico Hulkenberg are side by side as they're trading positions into turn 6, as I think Esteban Ocon is come out second best finally to Nico Hulkenberg. Nico Hulkenberg finally ahead of Esteban Ocon, and we'll see if the Audi will be able to have some pace here on the medium compound tyres as Hulkenberg gets past Ocon after a good while of trying, and he now has some clean air ahead of him. But if you are just tuning in, Max Verstappen is P2nd. He's 5.1 seconds behind George Russell. As there's a radio message from George Russell saying, I think it's all surface overheating. The one stop may be possible. The one stop may be possible is what George Russell has just thrown out there on the radio. Surely a one stop isn't possible here. We will see if that is the case. But George Russell may be just trying to bait some drivers into thinking that Russell will be doing the one stop here. But he is leading by 5 seconds over Max Verstappen. We've seen Lewis Hamilton pit early, Ferrari pit early here. I don't see how the one stop is potentially possible here. But George Russell thinks maybe so on the radio. We do know that the drivers and all teams have access to those radio messages, and that may be something that is just trying to bait them into pitting early, or going much longer than what they think is necessary. But we'll see, as Max Verstappen is closing down on George Russell. You can see there that interval time is highlighted. 4.9 seconds means that they are gaining, as Lewis Hamilton is within the overtake mode of Liam Lawson ahead on those fresh hard compound tyres, as Charles Leclerc gets past Gabriel Bortoleto, as Bortoleto now decides to pit off of those soft compound tyres that have done 16 laps here at this start of the Austrian Grand Prix. Only 1 or 2 drivers to start on the softs, as the other Carlos Sainz has pitted as well onto mediums into P20. So those pitting on the mediums are definitely going to be doing a 2-stop here. Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton only have one brand new mediums available to them, which they've already used. So they'll be either taking these hards to the end of the race, as Hamilton is asked, pace is okay. Better now, you are faster than Charles, is what Hamilton has been told on the radio. So clear and concise messaging from Lewis Hamilton's engineer, just like it was in Barcelona. We still don't know how that stands him in the overall for the race. We will see, as Lewis Hamilton is pulling out a gap, as is reported by the graphics on the TV coverage, but he is pulling out a gap over Max Verstappen if Max Verstappen decides to pit right now, which he does indeed. Max Verstappen pits. So here we go. So Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen are going to be very close on the pit exit. I think Lewis Hamilton is going to be ahead, but by how much? Now, Max Verstappen will have a brand new set of tyres on, so he is going to be very punchy and very quick here on this exit out of the pit lane. Is Liam Lawson going to get ahead of Max Verstappen? No, he isn't. So Max Verstappen is on a set of hard compound tyres here, with 53 laps remaining, and Lewis Hamilton with 6-lap older hard compound tyres is 1.6 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen. And well, this is going to be very interesting. Of course, turn 6 is still being investigated for forcing another driver off of the racing circuit, an incident between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. Well, I'm still yet to see whether or not that is actually a penalty to Lewis Hamilton, or whether or not Max Verstappen was behind or not. I need to see exactly what occurred before I make any further judgment. I'm still waiting to see a replay of it. But Lewis Hamilton, 1.7 seconds behind Max Verstappen. Now, Max Verstappen will be getting these tyres up to temperature. It won't take long, in 51 degrees Celsius. We'll see how the performance of that Red Bull is on the hard compound tyre. Just because you're good on the mediums doesn't mean you're necessarily good on the hard compound tyres. George Russell is in the pit lane. So Antonelli leads the Austrian Grand Prix as he started from 4th place. He is up into P1. Lando Norris up into P3 as George Russell will be exiting the pit lane here, and he is going to come out ahead of Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. It's going to be close, as Lewis Hamilton is going to get a very good run up into turn 3, but George Russell does stay far enough ahead of Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen, and the pace that they were dropping there would have been interesting to see if George Russell stayed out for maybe 1 or 2 more laps, because Lewis Hamilton is now only 1.8 seconds behind George Russell, but he's going to be more focused in on his rearview mirrors as Max Verstappen is nearly 1.1 seconds, nearly within that 1 second range of Lewis Hamilton ahead of him. We will see whether or not how that battle will unfold. Still a very long way to go in this race. 52 laps. Lewis Hamilton still under investigation for forcing Max Verstappen off at turn 6. That has not found a resolution yet, as Arvid Lindblad does the fastest first sector of anyone as he's looking to overtake, who is it at the moment? Ollie Bearman. No, Lawson. It's Lawson, Lindblad and Bearman. 3 abreast. Oh my goodness, I didn't realise where they were. Lawson, Bearman and Lindblad trading places left, right and centre there as they were 3 abreast up into turn 3. And Liam Lawson and Arvid Lindblad have come out on top of Ollie Bearman. And goodness me, I was looking to see where the icon of Liam Lawson was. Well, he was hidden behind Bearman and Lindblad as Lindblad was ahead into turn 3, but he comes out in the middle of the pair there as, wow, great racing between them. And that is the nature of the Red Bull Ring, provides great side-by-side action. So, updates on the battles then, as some pit stops have been made. Kimi Antonelli still yet to make a pit stop as he is ahead at the moment on the medium compound tyre. Lando Norris is P2. He is 11.5 seconds ahead of Kimi Antonelli. Remember, it's a 20-second pit stop lost time here. So, Antonelli, if he pits right now, he will be coming out behind Max Verstappen and ahead of Charles Leclerc. Around 5 seconds behind. That is the time that Antonelli is losing, but clearly a difference in strategy and approach here as Max Verstappen does the fastest lap last time around, as it does seem like that my track map is a little bit behind. I'm just going to reload that as they were going through. There we go. There we go. Track map back on top there. There we go. So Charles Leclerc does the fastest middle sector. Max Verstappen does the fastest first sector as Lando Norris dives into the pit lane. But Hamilton, will he be able to hold off Max Verstappen for long? Or is it more clever really to try and allow Max Verstappen through? So, because if he's got the pace, he could maybe challenge George Russell and then he could capitalise there. Let's see what the strategy will be here. Of course, every point matters in the overall standings of the championship. But Kimi Antonelli currently leads and is extending this first stint. Lando Norris now into the pit lane, but we're seeing those drivers who are on brand new tyres setting fastest lap and fastest sectors, as Hadjar is on a set of brand new mediums. He has 2 brand new sets of mediums to utilise here. The Red Bulls only a couple of only teams who are able to utilise the mediums today, so a difference in strategy for them. We'll see how that plays out for them as Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton very close there as they go down into turn 4, as Hamilton regains a position from Max Verstappen as they were side by side into turn 4. We've seen these 2 drivers go side by side through this section already, as they're still side by side through turn 6. Lewis Hamilton defends the inside as he would have done previously, but Max Verstappen has 6 lap pressure, hard compound tyres. Who is going to come out ahead? And this time it's Max Verstappen, as Lewis Hamilton has to concede the position to Max Verstappen. As Max Verstappen did go for the send down into turn 3. It was a repeat of previous where Lewis then did the cut back and came back at Max Verstappen, comfortably overtook, and then Max, with that extra level of grip that he has, stayed around the outside of Lewis Hamilton, and he'll now be looking at George Russell up ahead, who just did an 11.4. And well, let's see how this race goes on as Lewis Hamilton is told, wow, I tell you what, actually, I've got my, dearie me, bit naughty from Max Verstappen there, but that is how Max races, of course. And into turn 6, actually, Max Verstappen was on the inside, and where I thought he went around the outside, he just let off the brakes and drove Lewis well out to the outside of the corner. So much track on the inside, but it's within the letter of the law. Lewis kept it clean, Max kept it clean, and well, Max wasn't going to lose that position there, and he is now looking to chase down George Russell up ahead. That is how Max races. He races aggressive, and well, will Lewis Hamilton be able to stay with Max Verstappen here? Charles Leclerc is in P5. Let's see how this race unfolds. But Max Verstappen in that Red Bull definitely looking very, very quick here today, even after that crash yesterday, as Lando Norris is struggling out there. Look, watching him go deep into turn 3 there on his pit exit, as we already have some blue flags for those at the back of this very short circuit, as Kimi Antonelli is up the road. George Russell does the fastest lap of the race with 1:11.2. Max Verstappen half a second off that time around. We'll see if he's going to be able to catch. We'll keep an eye on that interval time, 3.6 seconds between Verstappen and George Russell. Lewis Hamilton's just going to try and stay close. We'll see whether that is, whether he'll be able to do so, and of course stay ahead of his teammate in the, of course, the overall standings of the championship. Kimi Antonelli going very long in this race. Maybe he is going to try and make a one-stop work. Kimi Antonelli. We'll see how that fares for him, as George Russell is only 7.4 seconds behind his teammate. We'll see when Kimi Antonelli is going to pit. If he pits now, he will come out just ahead of Oscar Piastri and 5 seconds behind Charles Leclerc, as we have an overtake of Colapinto at the back there on the Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso, as Carlos Sainz is moving or not moving, I can't tell, as we have a double yellow as a Carlos Sainz. We could have a safety car here, and is Kimi Antonelli going to get a cheap pit stop, or is he going to miss the cheap pit stop here, as Carlos Sainz seems to have come to a standstill on the start-finish straight, it seems. I don't know if he's in the pit lane, as George Russell does get ahead. Kimi Antonelli could be getting a cheap pit stop here, as well. What is going to happen? Where is Carlos Sainz? Where is he out on track? It is only a yellow flag. It seems to be as a W. There's a VSC deployed. A VSC deployed. And Kimi Antonelli, as Carlos Sainz is indeed pulled over at the start-finish straight. That car will have to be removed. I do presume this will be a full safety car. We will see how that is. That's got to be a full safety car. Surely a full safety car at the moment. But yes, Carlos Sainz, Kimi Antonelli pitted. They pitted just a touch too early, really. He pitted a touch too early, as we are waiting for the live data to re-sort itself out here. The VSC deployment has thrown things off a bit, as Carlos Sainz is stricken on the start-finish straight. He is okay. The car has just come to a standstill. And, well, who is going to pit here? Is anyone going to pit and give up track position? I'm not so sure anyone is going to be able to benefit from this right now if you are in the top, if you're the top drivers. Kimi Antonelli has just missed that VSC. He could have got a cheap pit stop there if he'd waited, if that VSC came out just a bit longer. But they pitted. The VSC then came out as he was exiting the pit lane. So Lance Stroll is going to benefit from this, as is Fernando Alonso. Not that that's too much to take into consideration. Ollie Behrman has pitted. He's got a cheap pit stop there, as he stays ahead of his teammates in P14 and will be looking at the rear of Nico Hülkenberg. Lewis Hamilton's going to pit. Lewis Hamilton pitting under the VSC. So we have Lewis Hamilton taking advantage of the VSC here, of a cheap pit stop. Charles Leclerc not doing so. And Lewis Hamilton is going to come out behind Oscar Piastri. He's going to come out behind Isaac Hadjar, I presume. And ahead of Lando Norris. As Hamilton, is he going to get ahead of Isaac Hadjar here? No, he's not. So Lewis Hamilton on the softs. Bold. So we're going free stop again for Lewis Hamilton. Free stop again for Lewis Hamilton. Free stop again for Lewis Hamilton. Pit lane entry has now been closed as well. Oh, how is this going to work out? How is this going to work out here? Here we go. So, we'll see how it fares for him. Doesn't look like he's got the most amount of pace here today, Lewis Hamilton. So, something a little bit outside of the box required for the Ferrari team, as the pit lane has been noted to be closed. Other drivers are on the hard compound tyre. The VSC is now coming to an end, but he has to overtake Hadjar, Piastri, and Antonelli ahead of him. How long will those soft compound tyres last? How quick will he be? Let's see how this race unfolds. There's a yellow in the pit lane as we have green light, and we are back racing here at the Austrian Grand Prix. George Russell leads by 6.4 seconds, 5.6 seconds from Max Verstappen. Charles Leclerc is 6.4 seconds behind on 12-lap old hard tyres, as Antonelli will be looking to get onto the rear of Leclerc pretty quickly on brand new hards, as he's in P4. Oscar Piastri is up 2 places into P5, with Isaac Hadjar on fresh mediums right behind him, as Lewis Hamilton, pitted under the VSC, committing to a free stop here today, is P7 on soft compound tyres. Lando Norris really struggling with the races. Antonelli is saying, Bono, what's happening with these brakes? I have no confidence, as apparently they have a brake split, mate. So Antonelli driving at the moment with a hampered Mercedes, not at his peak that he would like to be, but he's faring okay at the moment as he's P4, and he's just set the fastest first sector of anyone, as he's on the rear wing of Charles Leclerc. 12-lap fresher tyres he has then, Charles Leclerc. So we'll see. It will probably sooner rather than later that he dispatches the Ferrari of Charles. We'll keep an eye on Lewis Hamilton, who is 1.7 seconds behind Isaac Hadjar, who is chasing down Oscar Piastri. Hards versus mediums there, as we have the fastest first sector from Lewis Hamilton, understandably, on those mediums. Max Verstappen closing down the gap to George Russell. 4.9 seconds is the gap. On the same age of hard compound tyre, as Max did a 6/10 quicker last lap, last time around. He was a bit more on the ball when it came to that virtual safety car restart compared to George Russell. There was still an investigation, I believe, for Lewis Hamilton, and the... was Lewis Hamilton's investigation cleared? As it was still noted. So Lewis Hamilton's investigation with Max Verstappen of forcing another driver off of the racing circuit still hasn't been sorted. So we'll see what is going on there. By the way, guys, if you're enjoying the stream, nearly 20,000 of you here right now, hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. Over 85,000 subs, by the way. Thank you very much. And if we could get the stream to 5,000 likes, thank you. Only 1,500. So George Russell responds to Max Verstappen closing down the gap there with a fastest middle sector, but then Max Verstappen goes, "I'll see you, a fastest middle sector too," as he is looking to chase down George Russell. Charles Leclerc in P3, Kimi Antonelli P4, Oscar Piastri P5, as Antonelli is in that overtake mode range of Charles Leclerc right now, but he has the Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso ahead of him. Isaac Hadjar unable to capitalise on Oscar Piastri on those hard compound tyres, and he's now got Lewis Hamilton in his rearview mirrors on those softs, and it's probably going to be, and then the next time they head round to turn 3, that Isaac Hadjar will be overtaken by Lewis Hamilton, as he'll have that overtake mode enabled, and Hadjar will not, as he's outside that 1 second range. Kimi Antonelli very close to Charles Leclerc there as they get past Fernando Alonso, but he's 4 tenths behind. He might not get Charles Leclerc down into turn 3, struggling with the confidence in the brakes at the moment. As Max Verstappen does the fastest lap of the race, 2 tenths quicker than George Russell, consistently closing down that gap little by little. Charles Leclerc now vulnerable to Kimi Antonelli in that very quick Mercedes. We can see there he's closing, but has he got enough down into turn 4? I think Charles just has enough to stay ahead, as Lewis Hamilton unable to get past Isaac Hadjar there into turn 3 as well. Maybe he didn't have the overtake mode enabled that time around. Lewis Hamilton, just because you've got it doesn't mean you're able to use it. You need to have the battery in store to be able to utilize the battery for the overtake mode. Hamilton 3.7 seconds. He's 0.37 seconds behind Isaac Hadjar, who is still just outside of that 1 second range of Oscar Piastri. Will he be able to get within the 1 second range of Oscar Piastri as they make their way round turn 9? He hasn't been he might have just, I'm not entirely sure. He's within the 1 second range, but as they went through the pink dot there on the track map, which is the detection zone, I'm not entirely sure if Hadjar was within that 1 second range. But let's see this time around whether Antonelli will be able to close down Charles Leclerc, as that gap has increased to 6 tenths. But Isaac Hadjar, he's getting a little toe from Fernando Alonso, as Lewis Hamilton is 2 tenths behind. Will Alonso concede here and get out of the way of both of these drivers? He will indeed, as Lewis Hamilton very close under braking on Isaac Hadjar. Has he actually gone for a move? No, he's 2.5 tenths behind. He's going to be lining him up for a move here down into turn 4. Will he have enough, as Antonelli does get past Charles Leclerc down into turn 4, as Hadjar still holds on to the position from Lewis Hamilton there. Just still getting enough of a slipstream from Oscar Piastri up ahead, but Lewis Hamilton has the extra level of grip here. They're side by side, they make their way into turn 6. Softs versus mediums, and Lewis Hamilton comes out on top, dispatches Isaac Hadjar. A well-needed overtake for Lewis Hamilton, and he'll now have his sights set on Oscar Piastri up ahead there. But in the meantime, Kimi Antonelli, importantly in this lap, has got past Charles Leclerc. He's up into P3. He's on the hard compound tyres. He has fresh hard compound tyres, and he'll now be looking to try and close that gap to Max Verstappen, who is setting fastest lap after fastest lap right now on hard compound tyres. 12 laps versus 12 laps of George Russell as well on the age of those hard compound tyres, and George Russell at the front, maybe just looking after those hards at this stage of the race. But fair and respectful racing between Isaac Hadjar and Lewis Hamilton. Isaac Hadjar, though, isn't going to give this up easily. He'll be looking to try and come back at his hero, Lewis Hamilton, and he has been able to do so there. As Charles Leclerc also looking at maybe coming back against Kimi Antonelli, but does he have enough? Does he have the level of grip? He has 12-lap younger tyres than Charles Leclerc, Kimi Antonelli, so he should have the level of grip necessary, as Lance Stroll has been noted for a yellow flag infringement earlier on as well. Sergio Perez was noted for a false start. About the 10th full start, I think, Sergio Perez has had this season in that Cadillac, and unfortunately for Cadillac, a very early retirement for them. as they are both out of this race within 5 laps for the Cadillacs, who brought a whole host of updates here this weekend. Incident involving Alex Albon, yellow flag infringement as well, as we will run through the grid as we've just completed we're on the 32nd lap of this 71 lap race here at the Austrian Grand Prix. George Russell leads by 4.1 seconds over Max Verstappen. Yes, Max Verstappen is up 3 places. That Red Bull looking quick here this weekend. Kimi Antonelli is 9 seconds behind Max Verstappen in P3. Charles Leclerc is P4 and Oscar Piastri is P5. Lewis Hamilton is down 3 places into P6 but has made 1 extra pit stop compared to everyone else and is now committed to the free stop. He's on the soft compound tyre. We'll see how this works out for him come the end of the race. Isaac Hadjar is in P7 with Lando Norris really struggling here this weekend is in P8. Arvid Lindblad is ahead of his teammate in P9. He got the benefit of the VSC and finds himself ahead of Liam Lawson. Bortoletto is in P11 with Gasly in P12. Hulkenberg is P13. Bevan 14th. Ocon 15th. Colapinto 16th. Albon is 17th. Alonso 18th. Stroll 19th. And Sainz has retired from this race as well. It says he's in the pits, but he did bring out that VSC and he will be retired from this race, as Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas also did as well. So, George Russell, 4 seconds. That gap is closing between Max Verstappen and George Russell, as George Russell did just have to clear a couple of lap cars there of Colapinto and Alex Albon, as Hamilton has told Mode TS. Mode TS. Why do I have to go to Mode TS? Temperature. As Hamilton says, I already have no power. Oh dear. So, Lewis Hamilton told to look after that Ferrari power unit as he is on the soft compound tyre, trying to push as hard as he possibly can on a different strategy compared to everyone else. And Lewis Hamilton has been told to go into a temperature saving mode, I believe. That's probably what TS means, temperature saving. And Lewis Hamilton, not when he needs it, has to look after this engine in these high altitudes. Very, very hot out there at the moment. 51.4 degrees track temperature. Very, very hot. 34.5 degrees Celsius in the air. So, how we have seen these engines go pop in the closing stages of this race. Will we see a repeat of that again, just like we did in Barcelona? Still a very long way to go with 39 laps remaining, as George Russell, 3.9 seconds is the gap to Verstappen. Antonelli, 9.1 seconds is the gap to Verstappen. Charles Leclerc, 2.8 seconds behind Antonelli. Piastri, 1.2 seconds behind Leclerc, and he is being chased down by Lewis Hamilton on the soft compound tyre, who is 1.5 seconds behind. So we'll see how this race is going to unfold here. Liam Lawson close to his teammate. They're both looking to secure a double point scoring finish here for the third race in a row. As they are 4 seconds ahead of Gabriel Bortoletto, but of course Lawson would want to get another one over his teammate, as will Arvid Lindblad over his teammate as well, so that could be a tasty inter-team battle come the end of this race. Antonelli under 9 seconds to Max Verstappen now, as he's on 9 lap-old tyres, as Max Verstappen loses a bit of time as he's trying to get past Franco Colapinto. Russell stuck behind Esteban Ocon here as well, as he's making his way into turn 9. As we have 5 drivers now about to be lapped from this race. Piastri, it seems like Stroll wouldn't crash, go forward tap mode tonight. Oh, Ocon noted yellow flag infringement as well. Has the gap closed down is what Hamilton asked, and he has been told yes. So I'm still intrigued to see what happens with Hamilton's strategy here. Pitting under the VSC, I don't quite know where he sits, how long these soft compound tyres can last, and when he's then going to pit again. It's going to be interesting to see. It seems like they've lost a bit of pace here this weekend, Ferrari. I thought they would fare much better on the tyres, but it does seem that they aren't faring as well here as they did in Barcelona. But George Russell, 3.3 seconds. That gap is closing. Max Verstappen to George Russell. But I guess the question of this race at the moment is Max just trying to get into an undercut window? Is he just trying to catch George and then pull the trigger and go onto another set of hard compound tyres and go onto those mediums at the end of the race? Remember, Max Verstappen has another brand new set of mediums to use where all other drivers do not have that. Only him and his teammate have the option and the flexibility to use another set of mediums or hard compounds, whereas the Ferraris, the Mercedes, the McLarens are all tied in really to the soft or the hard compound tyre in the closing stages of this race on their second stint. I don't think that the one stop is going to be viable here at the moment. It just seemed to be a bit too hot, but we will see. I really hope not, because two stops are always more interesting. But let's see how the race unfolds. There could be more drama, more VSCs, more safety cars with the hot temps here, and with drivers having to manage their temperatures, as Lewis Hamilton is now within that 1 second range of Oscar Piastri, but in turn Oscar Piastri is within the 1 second range of Charles Leclerc. So Charles Leclerc, Piastri and Hamilton separated by just a couple of seconds here, just over a second really, as Oscar Piastri is looking to try and catch Charles Leclerc. But Lewis Hamilton has the quicker tyre on at the moment, but he is in a temperature-saving mode for his engine. So will he have enough over the Mercedes power unit that is in the back of that McLaren? As Charles Leclerc, who is on quite old hard compound tyres, 22 laps compared to Oscar Piastri's 16. So a 6-lap difference there, 6-lap delta. And Oscar Piastri will be looking ahead of him as well as looking in his rear-view mirrors. He's going to have his head on a swivel at the moment. But I think there's probably more likely opportunity of him overtaking Charles Leclerc here than Lewis Hamilton catching and overtaking him first. But we will see as they make their way down into turn 9. We've seen overtakes here before already, but mostly from the Mercedes cars of Russell and Antonelli, as Piastri stays very close to Charles Leclerc into turn 9. Charles just doesn't seem to look like he has the level of grip into the fast right-hander of turn 9, which is where Max Verstappen lost control of his car yesterday, as Piastri does have that level of grip over Charles, and you can see there him closing very close into Charles into turn 1. Don't want to make the overtake there. There's no point in making the overtake there. You want the slipstream. You want the overtake mode down into turn 3 here, as Lewis Hamilton has, as Charles Leclerc. Chuck her in the bathroom. Apologies, cat issue. Cat getting in the way. Cat getting in the way. We had a cat interruption there. She is, out now. So, Oscar Piastri, in that, got past Charles Leclerc. And Lewis Hamilton looks like he could be getting past his teammate as well in very quick succession here as they head into turn 6. Cat got my tongue. Yes, cat got my tongue. As Lewis Hamilton does indeed get past Charles Leclerc into turn 6, as Charles has no way to fight off his teammate there. So he'll have his sights set on Oscar Piastri very quickly, and Oscar Piastri will have maybe a bit of an easier time of not having to look in front as well as behind. He'll only have to look in his rearview mirrors now, as Lewis Hamilton into P5, Charles Leclerc in P6. Different strategies being played here, and still not sure how it's going to work for them, as Charles Leclerc does dive into the pit lane now and will be coming off of those hard compound tyres. He was just losing time hand over fist here, as Lewis Hamilton went round the outside of Charles Leclerc into turn 6. Great overtake. I love to see the move around the outside into turn 6. It's always great to see, as Lewis Hamilton is still within half a second of Oscar Piastri. He might not have overtake mode enabled this time around, as Charles Leclerc exits the pit lane and comes out ahead of Fernando Alonso, Lance Stroll and the two V-carbs. Alonso and Lance Stroll, of course, having their own little battle there, Alonso and Lance Stroll, by the way. We'll see who will be the top, who comes out on top in the Aston Martins. Lindblad looking to close down on him, though, as he is still fighting his teammate, as Lawson is staying within that 1 second range. They're still bridging that gap to Gabriel Bortoleto behind, who is 5.6 seconds behind. Difference in strategy for Bortoleto and the two V-carbs, so they still have a race on their hands for the last point scoring position today at the Red Bull Ring, as Hamilton is 5 tenths behind Piastri. Update on the front. George Russell is 1.8 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen. Verstappen closing down that gap to George Russell, as he's 2 seconds behind at the moment. Kimi Antonelli also closing that gap down to Max Verstappen, who is 6.5 seconds behind now, as Antonelli has been lapping in the 111s, the only driver other than Lando Norris to be lapping in the 111s. 11.5 last time around for Kimi Antonelli. George Russell a 112.3, and well, is this the pace of George Russell? Is this George Russell saving here in this race? Is he trying to do the one stop? I'm not so sure. We will see. He did make mention of it earlier on, as George Russell leads by 1.4 seconds to Max, and you can see Verstappen is gaining every single corner at the moment, as Hamilton looking to try and get past Oscar Piastri down into turn 1. Oscar Piastri does know how to defend at this circuit. A great battle with Lando Norris last year. He didn't come out on top, and I'm sure he's learned his lessons, but will he be able to hold off Lewis Hamilton, who must be on those hard, hurting, soft compound tyres right now? He needs some clean air. He needs some, but he hasn't been able to get past Oscar Piastri and not really had some clean air. Thank you everyone for tuning in. By the way, if you are liking this stream, hit that like and subscribe, and we'll be back, of course, for the British Grand Prix, which is next week, and it's a sprint race weekend, remember, so be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, hit that notification button, and you will not, I'll be here for every single session. Well, maybe not the Friday, because I will be attending, still yet to get confirmation on that, but I will be attending my first ever race weekend. As Hamilton is told, we need to get Piastri now. As he's falling a bit behind Piastri here, 9/10 of a second. So as that message has come through, he's actually lost a bit of time to Oscar Piastri. So we'll see if he's going to be able to dispatch. Piastri is on those hard compound tyres and Hamilton is on the softs. But that gap to Max Verstappen. So Lewis had a real big moment into turn 9. Lewis Hamilton. That's where that loss of time just came from. So Lewis Hamilton nearly had the moment that Max Verstappen did yesterday into turn 9. So good car control from Lewis, but could have been very, very big and dramatic there for Lewis Hamilton in this race, currently in P5. And still yet to make another pit stop, undoubtedly, as he'll be looking to try and close down the gap to Piastri. But it looks like that's hurt his soft compound tyres there. So will he be able to get past Piastri, or will he have to pit sooner rather than he expected? We'll keep an eye on it. But Max Verstappen, 1.3 seconds to George Russell now. That is the gap we are keeping an eye out on. Max Verstappen, 1.3 seconds. He has caught up. He has caught up to George Russell from 5 seconds behind, and with 31 laps remaining, they are on almost identical lapped tyres here, aged tyres, 21 to 22. And Max Verstappen has chipped away at the gap to the Mercedes driver, and George Russell, who thought his battle today might be with the Ferraris or with even his teammates, is now looking at the driver who enabled him to get pole position yesterday, George Russell, with that yellow flag, who ended up in the barrier. And Max, who nearly didn't even get into Q3 yesterday, is now looking to try and win this race. He is the most successful driver here at the Red Bull Ring ever, and he is looking to try and win what could possibly be his only race win of this season. But if he wins here, it does set up the season well for maybe another Max recovery and a Red Bull recovery, as they brought improvements here this weekend. But George Russell, 1.4 seconds. We'll see whether or not George Russell has just been saving, or whether he has been losing pace actually to Max Verstappen. We will see, as Charles Leclerc does the fastest middle sector of anyone on brand new hard compound tyres. Lewis Hamilton is 1.2 seconds behind Piastri, and it looks like that really Lewis Hamilton might have lost the life now and lost the opportunity of those soft compound tyres to be able to get past Oscar Piastri. Fernando Alonso has been given a 5-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane, as Lance Stroll has currently got on top of that battle of the faster Aston Martin driver, as Lance Stroll is ahead of Fernando Alonso. Interestingly, that Sainz is still noted as not being retired, and he's just in the pit lane. So will we see a resurgence of Carlos Sainz? I don't think we will, because he did leave the car. So Carlos Sainz has retired, as well as the 2 Cadillacs who retired in the first 5 laps of this race, even though they brought a whole host of updates this weekend. Kimi Antonelli still trying to close the gap on Max Verstappen. 6.4 seconds is the gap right now to the Red Bull driver. He will be wanting Russell and Verstappen to fight it out so that he can close up and get involved in this battle. How will this battle unfold? Of course, Russell will not want to lose this race, but he also will not want to not finish the race. He will want to win it, and Max Verstappen may use that to his advantage, knowing that Russell will be thinking about the championship. But the championship standings needs George Russell. He needs that advantage of 10 points over his teammate, who is currently in P3. Lewis Hamilton is in the pit lane now. Lewis Hamilton in the pits, as is Oscar Piastri. So Lewis Hamilton has got past Oscar Piastri in the pit lane. No, it's just that their pit lane is ahead of Oscar Piastri. So Lewis Hamilton does seem like to have got a better pit stop, though, a much quicker pit stop than Oscar Piastri on the exit there. So Charles Leclerc is going to be rounding the last corner, rounding the first corner, and will be ahead of Oscar Piastri. But he does have a 5-lap older tyres than that of Lewis Hamilton and Oscar Piastri, who will undoubtedly be on the hard compound tyre now. Lando Norris is up in P4. And, well, it does seem like that we're an opportunity of a podium here for either Ferrari driver is reliant on a safety car here and bunching the field back up, because unless... Well, actually, no, maybe not, because there will be another pit stop here from Kimi Antonelli, you do presume, and George Russell and Max Verstappen, as George Russell now pits. Speaking of the devil, George Russell pits, and they pull the trigger first as Max Verstappen leads the Austrian Grand Prix for the first time, as Max Verstappen will now have some more clean air, and we'll see how much longer he is going to lead this race for. So rather than be undercut here, Mercedes, they have acted upon the pit stops first, and they will be going to the end of this race on the hard compound tyre. And I guess, George, is he going to be able to come out ahead of Lando Norris here? That is the question. He doesn't want to get stuck behind Lando, and I think he will. So, will Max Verstappen, will Red Bull respond here? Let's see. Or will they go a bit longer and hope for fresher tyres at the end of the race? Because they saw there that George Russell's pace was falling off, and Max did have much better pace, and it is a track that is possible to overtake. So we will see. But George Russell on the hard compound tyre to the end of this race. Remember, Max Verstappen also has a set of brand new mediums to use, whereas everyone else will be on the hard compound tyre. So maybe Max will be going a bit longer here in this stint, and he will then go on to the mediums, and it will be a chase again to George Russell. Let's see if Max Verstappen's going to pit. No, he is extending this stint. So no response from Red Bull. No response from Red Bull this time around to the pit stop of George Russell, who Antonelli is 5.1 seconds. He is closing in on Max Verstappen. Do not rule out Antonelli yet still. He has good pace here, and he has been gaining time consistently on Max Verstappen. That gap was 9 seconds when they made their last pit stops, and now it is down to 4.8 seconds. He has gained 5 seconds over Max Verstappen, just like Max Verstappen gained 5 seconds on George Russell. As Lewis Hamilton is on the hard, still not yet an understanding of which tyre Lewis Hamilton is on. I believe he's on the hard compound tyre. It's all that he had to use. He's not going to be on the soft compound tyre, and he will be looking to try and close down the gap on Oscar Piastri. But Oscar Piastri has just set the fastest lap of the race of 1:10.7 compared to Lewis Hamilton's 1:11.2. So Oscar Piastri really switching on those hard compound tyres quickly and trying to close down the gap to Charles Leclerc. As he is looking for a top 5 finish here. Lando Norris is still yet to make a pit stop though, so all those drivers behind will be making a position gained here. Kimi Antonelli is yet to make a pit stop, but he is within a 10-20 second pit stop range of Hamilton, Piastri and Charles Leclerc, so he won't have to worry about them. George Russell, a fastest middle sector for him on his first properly timed lap here after his out lap, as Max Verstappen is still extending here. So this looks like that we are going to see Max Verstappen. It looks like we are going to see Max Verstappen go onto the medium compound tyre at the end of this race, the faster medium compound tyre, and go for the overtake at the end of this race to George Russell. As Max is told, yes, we are going to be, as we are going to look at building a tyre offset here. So that is what they are looking for at the moment, Max Verstappen, with that medium compound tyre at the end of this race. So it is going to be an aggressive finish to the Austrian Grand Prix with 26 laps remaining here. Oscar Piastri, another fastest lap for him, a 10.595 seconds. He's flying here on this hard compound tyre in this stint and closing down that gap to Charles Leclerc. He was six tenths quicker last time around and 3 tenths quicker than Lewis Hamilton. So Oscar Piastri and the McLarens flying in the closing stages here. George Russell radio. Interesting. So George Russell not particularly happy actually about his strategy. He feels like he's doing the strategy of others around him, and he is going to have to save his tyres in preparation for Max Verstappen being aggressive and on the attack at the end of the race. So a real balancing act that George Russell has to manage at the moment. We'll review that at the end, of course, to see whether it will be the right decision or not. Of course, still a long way to go. 25 laps remaining of whether this strategy will play out or not. But Oscar Piastri is absolutely flying right now. Oscar Piastri is done another lap in the 110s as Arvid Lindblad comes into the pit lane. What an absolute flyer he is putting in at the moment, Oscar Piastri. He is now 6 tenths behind Charles Leclerc, and Oscar Piastri is just on a mad one. He has really come alive here. Is he using too much tyre too early? We will see, but Woo-wee. 10.8 last time around. Lewis Hamilton did a 1:11.4. Charles Leclerc did a 1:11.7. Maybe they're just thinking about, yes, looking after these tyres a little bit more than Oscar Piastri. But Oscar Piastri is like, I want track position. And, well, I tell you what, track position might not be a bad thing because with how often we have seen cars go kaput at the end of a race, it may be a viable position to be. Just try and get track position, even if you burn your tyres a little bit out now, and you can get a cheaper pit stop. As Lando Norris now comes into the pit lane as Lando promotes Lewis Hamilton up into P6, Oscar Piastri into P5, and Charles Leclerc into P4. But look at Oscar Piastri. I think he's going to get Charles Leclerc as they make their way down into turn 3. Is he going to get the position here? He's surely going to have the extra level of grip. They're side by side. They're trading positions as they make their way through the exit of turn 3. And with the extra level of grip, 5-lap younger tyres Oscar Piastri has, he leads for now ahead of Charles Leclerc down into turn 4. And Oscar Piastri, who is flying at the moment on this second stint on this hard compound tyre, gets past Charles Leclerc and is up into P4. It does look like, well, Kimi Antonelli has a quite a sizable gap to himself and Oscar Piastri. And, well, Antonelli is now only 2 seconds. He's within 2 seconds of Max Verstappen. Antonelli's pace has been tremendous as well on this hard compound tyre, and he is gaining ever so on Max Verstappen. And I presume as soon as Antonelli catches Verstappen, which will probably be in the next lap or so, Verstappen and Red Bull will pit here. But Antonelli is really going on some, isn't he? Look at him, 1.2 seconds behind now. He is gaining time, hand over fist there, out of the traction zones to turn 3. Look at it, 1.1 seconds to Max Verstappen. Surely Max is pitting this lap because he's going to get overtaken by Antonelli. We will see, as Charles Leclerc has nearly already lost the 1 second range to Oscar Piastri there, as Hamilton is 1.5 seconds behind his teammate also. A top 5 for Lewis Hamilton would gain him 10 points, but it would lose him points on Kimi Antonelli and George Russell. As it stands, if George Russell finishes P3 and Lewis Hamilton finished in P6, he would still be in second place, Lewis Hamilton, but only by 2 points. And it does really seem that mostly that they will be switching positions in the Drivers' Championship. But Kimi Antonelli gets the lead of this race as Max Verstappen, yes, does pit that time around as he was losing time, considerable time, to Kimi Antonelli. And do not rule out Kimi in this race. Remember, there could be a fortunate VSC this time around. We will see. He was on the wrong side of a VSC earlier. Not wrong side of the VSC, but he wasn't able to gain from the VSC earlier. But Antonelli currently leads this race as George Russell is 8.3 seconds behind his teammate. Max Verstappen is out of the pit lane and he's on the hards. He's on the hard compound tyre, so unable to extend that stint long enough to use the mediums at the end of this race. He is on the hard compound tyre, and, well, there is a 6-lap advantage of Max Verstappen over George Russell with 22 laps remaining. This is it now to the end of the race. Max Verstappen, 11 seconds he has to make up on George Russell with 22 laps remaining with a 6-lap tyre advantage. Will he be able to do it? That is the gap that we'll be keeping an eye on. Do not rule out Kimi Antonelli, of course. He'll be hoping to try and bank a VSC pit stop if he can. That'll bring him right back into this race. Remember, it's a 9.5 second advantage by pitting under a VSC, and that would bring him right back into the race, depending on how late that VSC, how early it arrives. Oscar Piastri is currently 24 seconds ahead of behind Kimi Antonelli. So if Antonelli pitted now, there is a gap for him to pit into, but Oscar Piastri is flying right now, as Kimi is told, let's just maintain focus right now, is what Kimi has been told. As Verstappen does the fastest last sector of the race, that gap already down to a 10.6 seconds, half a second gain in that lap alone for Max Verstappen over George Russell, as Norris on brand new hards does the fastest middle sector as well. But Lewis Hamilton is half a second behind his teammate, and does seem to have the considerable pace over his teammate as well. So will there be team orders for Leclerc and Hamilton to allow Hamilton to have an attack on Oscar Piastri? We will see. There's 5-lap difference between their tyres, or will they allow their drivers to fight? As Oscar Piastri, an 11.2 last time around compared to Lewis Hamilton's 10.9. Yes, Lewis is in the slipstream of his teammate and potentially has overtake mode enabled, but he has 5-lap fresher tyres. Will there be team orders? We will see. That'll be controversial, but I will keep an eye on if Hamilton does get past Charles Leclerc. George Russell gaining on Kimi Antonelli, 5.7 seconds is the gap, as Antonelli does now come into the pit lane. Antonelli into the pit lane. He's seen a gap Oscar Piastri was gaining on Antonelli, and they don't want to waste any more time than necessary for Antonelli on behind Oscar Piastri, as Norris has been noted for a pit lane infringement. Not entirely sure what that is for, as Max Verstappen now up into P2. George Russell now leads this race again. 3 tenths was the advantage last time around for Max Verstappen on George Russell. 11.1 compared to a 10.888 for Max Verstappen and George Russell. Antonelli rejoins ahead of Oscar Piastri as Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton are very close this time around, and it does seem like that Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc, apologies, I got my L's mixed up there. As Lewis Hamilton is side by side with Charles Leclerc. How hard will Charles be able to fight this on Lewis Hamilton? I don't think he's been able to. Was that team orders? I'm not entirely sure. But Lewis Hamilton has now been released to go after Oscar Piastri, who has been flying in this last stint of the race. And Lewis Hamilton is trying to secure a P4 here. Of course, he would have loved the podium position. He started in P2, but the race has just not unfolded well for him. There's a VSC! There's a VSC, but what for? What for? As Kimi Antonelli has just pitted, and for the second time this race, there's debris out on circuit. That's what it's for. There's debris in the middle of turn 3. In the second time this race, Kimi Antonelli has pitted 1 lap prior to the VSC being called. Oh, poor timing for Kimi Antonelli. Great timing if you're George Russell, of course, because your teammate has not ended up on the right side of the VSC twice. So he'll be kicking. They'll be kicking themselves a bit. Kimi Antonelli and Mercedes, not George Russell. George Russell will be happy. So watching what happened with that debris, cleared very quickly, and we are back racing again as Lewis Hamilton has Charles Leclerc on his rear, and it was oh my goodness, it was actually the cone on the inside. Alex Albon just yeeted the cone that was on the inside of turn 3, and that is why they had to get out there and clear that cone. So or bollards for Alex Albon just decided to fully hit. So Lewis Hamilton, would he be able to catch Oscar Piastri? Max Verstappen is 9.1 seconds behind George Russell. Antonelli 4.7 seconds behind Max Verstappen, so it's going to be interesting to see what occurs in the closing stage of this race. Antonelli has had tremendous pace here today. He was catching Max Verstappen, but will he do it with 19 laps remaining? And also, will Verstappen catch George Russell with 18 laps remaining, as George Russell has just crossed the start-finish line and he's making his way down to turn 3 for the 54th time out of the 71 times he will do so today. Or at least you hope he does so today, if, of course, there are no late DNS, which we have seen be a factor here in this season. Max Verstappen 8.7 seconds, Antonelli 5.1 seconds. Antonelli has been caught behind Nico Hülkenberg here down into turn 3. We could see a real convergence at the end of this race between Russell, Verstappen and Antonelli for the lead. We have seen Max Verstappen make 2 overtakes in 2 successive corners here at the start of this race, and we know it's possible to overtake here today at the Red Bull Ring, even with no DRS anymore. The overtake mode has been effective. The slipstream has been effective. It is possible, if you catch a car, to overtake it. You are not stuck in a train. You are not just stuck in dirty air. As Lewis Hamilton will be looking to try and catch Oscar Piastri, as that gap is 2.8 seconds. Has come down from 3 seconds to Oscar Piastri, as he has done a 1:15.2 last time around. So we'll see what these lap times are when they eventually cross the start-finish line, as this will be the first time lap after the VSC has ended. Max Verstappen, a 1:10.5 compared to George Russell's 1:10.9. That's 3 tenths advantage that he's gained there. And Antonelli gains a 10th over Max Verstappen as well. He's gained half a second on his teammate alone last time around. Kimi Antonelli, as George Russell pitted early, 6 laps earlier than Max Verstappen. He's pitted 8 laps earlier than his teammate Antonelli. This is going to be a very interesting end to this race, I believe, as I think they will converge in the last few laps of the race, and we'll see maybe some late sends. And it could have big permutations on the overall driver's standing. As it stands, Kimi Antonelli would be on 171 points to George Russell's 131. There would be 10-point advantage gained by George Russell here. That's 40 points difference. Lewis Hamilton would only be gaining 10. He'd be on 125 points. He would drop down to P3. Charles Leclerc would be staying in P4. He'd move up to 83 points. Piastri would go ahead of his teammate Norris. Verstappen would move up onto 73 points, 4 points behind Norris in P7. So, big big permutations of the overall driver standings as Colapinto is going side by side with Esteban Ocon there down into turn 4. There's potential opportunities of late safety cars and so forth here as well, with drivers still going side by side and getting very racy out there. Max Verstappen 8.2 seconds behind George Russell, 10.599 last time around. Kimi Antonelli another 10.4, 4.6 seconds to Max Verstappen, 8.2 seconds Verstappen to George Russell. Well, how long are those tyres going to last? Lewis Hamilton is definitely losing time to Oscar Piastri, by the way. Maybe doesn't even have the pace to try and catch Oscar Piastri, and will have to settle for a P5 here. Not sure if he's still in that. Still not sure if he's in that temperature-saving mode that he was in for the engine, as Isaac Hadjar has got past Charles Leclerc here, as Isaac Hadjar and Charles Leclerc are side by side as they make their way down into turn 4. The Red Bull driver on 9-lap-old fresher hards compared to Charles Leclerc. They're side by side into turn 4 as Isaac Hadjar finally getting racy with a Ferrari. I think it's the first time this season he has done so, as Hadjar gets out and stays ahead of Charles Leclerc down into turn 6. Or has he? He has indeed, as Charles Leclerc does not have the level of grip to swoop around the outside of Hadjar. Great racing between the pair, but Charles Leclerc 5 places down from where he qualified. Started P2, he's down into P7, and the race pace of the Ferrari, I thought it would be much, much better than it was, is not quite there today. And well, we have seen that the Ferrari, just watching the racing back here between Charles and Hadjar, Leclerc locked up down the inside, and Hadjar just got the extra level of grip and drive out of the corner that he needed into the turn 6 corner. So a great move by Hadjar on Charles Leclerc, who has been struggling on those hard compound tyres. So as we run through the grid here, we have 15 laps remaining here at the Red Bull Ring. George Russell leads by 7.4 seconds now from Max Verstappen. Kimi Antonelli is 4.5 seconds behind Max Verstappen. He has 2-lap fresher tyres than Max Verstappen, and Max has 6-lap fresher tyres than George Russell. Will we see a convergence there come the end of the race? Oscar Piastri is 3.9 seconds behind Kimi Antonelli. He is not going to catch Kimi, but he is pulling away from Lewis Hamilton, as Lewis Hamilton is 3.5 seconds behind in P5. Isaac Hadjar is now up into P6. A good race from him in P6, splitting the 2 Ferraris. Charles Leclerc is in P7. Lando Norris is in P8 and is looking to catch Charles Leclerc, actually, as it's been a very poor race weekend for Lando Norris in that McLaren. Liam Lawson and Arvid Lindblad looking like they're going to score their third successive double points finish for VCarb in P9 and P10, as long as they don't do anything untoward between one another, as Lawson is 3.5 seconds ahead of Lindblad, and they have a near 7-second advantage over Gabriel Bortoletto in P11. Nico Hulkenberg is in P12. Gasly is in P13. He's now on the soft compound tyres. Behrman in 14th. Colapinto in 15th. Ocon is in 16th. Albon 17th. Alonso is 18th. We have seen now, I missed that, Lance Stroll has retired from this race. Carlos Sainz retired, and Perez and Bottas, the 2 Cadillacs, retired within 5 laps of one another, as Charles Leclerc is being caught by Lando Norris. So on those hard compound tyres, Charles Leclerc struggling. 20-lap-old hards. They're going to be 34 laps old by the time he finishes, and he is going to lose a whole heap of time. Don't think he'll fall into the clutches of Liam Lawson, though, who is 45 seconds behind the pair of Leclerc and Lando Norris. You can see there, Lando Norris gaining time, hand over fist there. Gap to Verstappen, he's gained there again, 0.4 of a second to George Russell, as George Russell is having to do a balancing act of manage out up front, manage these tyres, bring them to the end, as well as making sure he has just enough left in case of a safety car restart, in case Max Verstappen is able to catch and attack him in the closing stages. It does look like we are running out of time, though, for Max Verstappen. He's not catching him at enough rate of knots, I think. 13 laps remaining. He needs to get a bit of more of a move on Max Verstappen, and George Russell has pretty clean air now until he reaches Alex Albon, who is quite far up the road. So he's got past the 2 VCarbs. They have probably held up George Russell as much as they possibly could, as Lando Norris is ahead of Charles Leclerc. Or is he? They're side by side as they make their way out of turn 3. He's been catching. And, well, Charles Leclerc, he's already gone side by side with Isaac Hadjar down into turn 4 before, but I think Charles Leclerc has to accept that this race has not gone how he wanted it to. He's now down 6 places, P8. 46 seconds is the gap now to Liam Lawson. And, well, the strategy, the start for Charles Leclerc, he went for an attack on George Russell into turn 3, but found himself out of position and then quickly, consecutively lost positions because he was defending and out of place to his teammate and those behind. And since then, the strategy has just not worked for Ferrari. A misstep. A great strategy call last time around, of course, in Barcelona, but this time around, the strategy has been misplaced. But I think they have been forced into their strategy due to the struggles of the car here today. Something that I personally didn't predict after them faring very well in Barcelona, as Charles Leclerc, right on cue there, decides to pit. He's got a 2 pit stop window to Liam Lawson behind. It makes sense to go onto another set of tyres to the end of this race. It's probably the soft compound tyre, a used set of softs, and Charles Leclerc will comfortably make it to the end of this race now and get off those struggling hard compound tyres. So update on the battle at the front. So you can see George Russell leads by 5.6 seconds to Max Verstappen. That gap is consistently coming down, but is it coming down fast enough? I don't think so. 0.6 of a second was the gain last time around for Max Verstappen on George Russell. Kimi Antonelli did a 10.374, the fastest lap of the race last time around, and is now under 4 seconds behind Max Verstappen, but they are running out of time. 11 laps remaining here of this Austrian Grand Prix. Who is going to win? Can George Russell see this out? Can Max Verstappen do an unbelievable race win here after crashing in Q3, after starting P5? He has been tremendous at this circuit, as we have so often seen. The most successful driver ever at the Red Bull Ring. Kimi Antonelli looking, he's been arguably the fastest man here this weekend, but finds himself in P3 on the wrong side of that yellow flag yesterday, misinterpreting the single yellow for a double yellow. He could have been on pole rather than his teammate. He could at least have been on the front row, but alas, he started fourth, and he has been on the wrong side of 2 virtual safety cars here today. Well, I say on the wrong side. He has made good pit stops, but 2 VSCs have come out the lap on his outlap from both pit stops, and he hasn't been able to gain that all-important cheap pit stop advantage of 9.5 seconds to close down on both his teammate and Max Verstappen, who are P1 and P2 at the moment. Oscar Piastri is 7.2 seconds behind Antonelli. It is between those 3 for the last podium positions. Oscar Piastri P4, he's 4 seconds ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton doesn't seem to have the pace to match that very quick Oscar Piastri and McLaren on this last stint on the hard compound tyres. He's absolutely flown on the low fuel here towards the end, Oscar Piastri. Lando Norris, Isaac Hadjar is 5 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton. Lando Norris is 1.9 seconds behind Isaac Hadjar. He is catching quite quickly, Lando Norris. The McLaren really seems to have come alive on the hard compound tyre at the end of this race. And Charles Leclerc in P8, he is on used soft compound tyres now to see him to the end. So it's all about this battle at the front. Is Kimi going to catch Max Verstappen? He's gaining around 4 tenths a second per lap, and it looks like Antonelli is going to catch Verstappen before Verstappen catches Russell. Only 3 tenths of a second last time around for Verstappen on Russell, and that is not enough time. Antonelli, 3.4 seconds is the gap to Verstappen. You can see that interval time come down every single corner, but Antonelli has 2 V-carbs to make his way past. Yes, they are lapped, but I'm sure they will hold Antonelli back as long as they possibly can, as within the regulations, as legal as they're allowed to do. That is the benefit, one of the benefits that, of course, Red Bull has, the only team on the track, on the grid, that has a junior team able to be utilised in this way. I'm sure they will say they do not, but I'm sure there's an unwritten rule that they do. By the way, guys, if you have liked this stream, hit that like and subscribe. By the way, we are at 85,500 subscribers. Let's get that to 86,000, 87,000. I know you guys can, with 25,000 of you here in the stream. Over 2,000 likes at the moment. Let's get this to 5,000 likes. Double that. It'd be much appreciated. We're back for the British Grand Prix next week. Only 1 week to remain. It's a sprint race weekend as well at Silverstone, and we will see how that fares there. It's been very, very hot in the UK, so Silverstone, we know that it can always provide very, very good racing, whether it's wet or dry, so be sure to tune in for that. But we have 9 laps remaining here. Well, 8 laps remaining when George Russell crosses the start-finish line right now, as Verstappen is 5 seconds behind George Russell. Kimi Antonelli has been held up somewhat by Liam Lawson there. He hasn't gained at all on that last lap, as we will see them cross the finish line here. A 10.9 for Max Verstappen, and it was a 10.9 as well as a 1.11 for Antonelli. So we actually lost time for the first time in a whole heap of laps there to Max Verstappen, and that is the nature of having to overtake, even if it's blue flags, the sister team, the junior team of Red Bull. as Lindblad and Lawson are doing what they are paid to do, which is support, when necessary, the bigger team. Isaac Hadjar closing down on Lewis Hamilton. He's gained a little bit of time on Oscar Piastri last time around. Lewis Hamilton, 3/10 of a second, but running out of laps there to even be able to catch Piastri, let alone overtake. And it looks like Max Verstappen is going to fall a bit shy here of George Russell as well, unless George Russell's tyres really do fall off a cliff here, and he has difficulties with lap traffic. Max Verstappen, I think, may fall just a bit shy of George Russell. He'll now be able to see the Mercedes car as they make their way into turn 9. He'll be able to see the rear wing. Or will he catch George Russell on the last lap and have one last attempt? They are pushing to the limit here, Max Verstappen and Kimi Antonelli. 3.5 seconds is the gap of Kimi Antonelli to Max Verstappen. 4.6 seconds is the gap of Max Verstappen to George Russell with 7 laps remaining. They need to make time hand over fist here, the two of them, as they'll see the Mercedes of George Russell make his way up the hill to turn 3 and get past Alex Albon into that corner. Max Verstappen will be hoping he has as much difficulty as possible in overtaking Alex Albon and Esteban Ocon, who are up ahead, and maybe even Alonso and Colapinto, who are going so slowly at the back there. I mean, Alonso has actually just been overtaken by Colapinto for the second time here. Oh, sorry, for the first time. He's been lapped by Franco Colapinto. Fernando Alonso, as he's down in 18th position. 60 seconds is the gap between Alonso and Alex Albon. That is the gap between 17th and 18th at the moment. That is how slow Fernando Alonso is, and that Aston Martin is lapping at 1:14.3 seconds. Well, actually, he did a 1:13.5 last time around, Fernando Alonso, but he's a good 2.5 seconds off of the pace of George Russell and Max Verstappen. That is him at the moment. So Max Verstappen, 4.1 seconds to George Russell. 6 laps remaining now. George Russell did a 1:11.5. Verstappen, a 1:10, a 1:11 this time around, as he's getting held up by the dirty air of Alex Albon. Kimi Antonelli nearly within the 3-second range of Max Verstappen, a 1:10.6. He's gained 4 tenths on Max Verstappen there. Verstappen will be hoping that he can catch George Russell before Antonelli catches him, but it doesn't look like it. It looks like Antonelli is going to catch Verstappen before he does Russell, and Antonelli could be doing Verstappen, George Russell a solid here, but we are running out of laps. 6 laps remaining. If only there were 10 laps remaining, it would be so much better. But will we see at least one opportunity here? Sometimes that's all you need at the Red Bull Ring. We've seen last lap collisions before. Remember Lewis Hamilton, Nico Rosberg on the last lap up to turn 3. It could happen again. Remember, we see cars go kaput in the last 5 laps of races. We saw it in Barcelona. Will we see it again here at this high altitude, in these very hot track conditions at the Austrian Grand Prix? I'm quite surprised we've seen as many teams last as long as we have, to be honest, with this track temperature not dropping below 50 degrees Celsius here today, and pretty much throughout the whole of this weekend. Teams, of course, are going to be increasing their reliability, but as it stands, Antonelli would be losing 10 points to George Russell in the championship standings. Lewis Hamilton in P5 would be losing 5 points to Antonelli. He would be only gaining 10, 125 points to Antonelli's 171, so that would be a 46-point gap. Russell would have a 40-point gap to Kimi Antonelli, so it's not all doom and gloom for Kimi Antonelli here, but Kimi Antonelli could be gaining 3 more points if he's able to catch and overtake Max Verstappen. We have 5 laps remaining, 4 laps remaining after this one. Lap 67 we are on of lap 71 here. Who is going to come out on top? Hit the like and subscribe button, guys, if you have enjoyed this watch along today. We'll be back, of course, for the British Grand Prix next time around, and do stay tuned after the race ends, because we'll be reviewing everything that has happened and having a look at the all-important championship standings as well to see those permutations. But as we cross the line, and nearly George Russell with the last couple of corners now. He has 3.6 seconds to Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen and Antonelli now have clean air ahead of them. No lap traffic for them to contend with, unless your name is Fernando Alonso, who they'll be catching probably in the next couple of laps or so, or even this lap, considering how slow Fernando Alonso has been going. Max Verstappen will see the rear wing of George Russell's car. Antonelli will be feeling the dirty air now of Max Verstappen's Red Bull. 2.1 seconds is the gap to Max Verstappen. 3.5 seconds is the gap to George Russell and Max Verstappen. 5.6 seconds separates the 3 drivers. Oscar Piastri is in P4. He's got a 4.4 second lead over Lewis Hamilton. He is in P5. Hadjar is P6. Norris is P7. Charles Leclerc is P8. There's not really going to be any more movement there. Lindblad is catching Liam Lawson in the closing stages of this race as well, as Lawson is getting caught behind Alex Albon, a lap car. We've also got Bortoleto 8.5 seconds behind, 8.8 seconds behind Lindblad. So it looks like VCarb are going to score double points for the third successive race in a row. Great achievement from them. But George Russell, all eyes at the front, as George Russell is 3.3 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen with 3 laps remaining when they cross the line. Antonelli is under 2 seconds now of Max Verstappen. He is gaining every single corner, Kimi Antonelli, and Antonelli catching Verstappen before Verstappen can catch Russell here could give George Russell the respite that he needs with 3 laps remaining. Let's keep an eye out on those front 3. That's where all eyes are on at the moment. 1.7 seconds. It was a 10.5 from Antonelli last time around compared to Verstappen's 1.11. He gained half a second in that lap, and I think Verstappen is going to fall just shy of George Russell here. He doesn't have enough pace. Well, he has pace, but he doesn't have enough laps left remaining. It is Antonelli on Max Verstappen. I think Antonelli is at least going to get maybe 2 bites of the cherry here, 2 bites of the pie, sorry, with maybe 2 laps remaining. He'll get turn 3. He'll get turn 4. Maybe it'll be 4 because he'll get this time around, because look at the time he's gaining. He's gained 3 tenths nearly in that first sector alone. The middle sector is where you can see the extra level of grip that Antonelli has in that Mercedes. In the last sector, they have been supreme Mercedes with that power unit over Red Bull. That's why Max crashed yesterday. He had to try and find some extra time into turn 9. He sent it. The car didn't have the performance, and that's why he ended up in the barrier. But they was able to get the car repaired, and he started P5 today, and he's now looking to score a podium. He's been chasing the win, but he's just going to fall a bit short as we're on the penultimate lap of this race. George Russell, 2.7 seconds from Max Verstappen. Verstappen, 1 second ahead of Kimi Antonelli. He's just shy, Kimi Antonelli, of the overtake mode. He will get 1 opportunity of overtake next time around, Kimi Antonelli, for sure. Fernando Alonso, the Aston Martin, could he play an essential role here for this battle for the race win? 2.6 seconds is the gap as George Russell is looking to try and get past Fernando Alonso, who is 53 seconds behind P17 of Alex Albon, and is about to be lapped for the 3rd time in this race. Max Verstappen, 9 tenths of a second ahead of Kimi Antonelli, 8 tenths ahead of Kimi Antonelli here. As they make their way through the middle sector, George Russell is being held up by Fernando Alonso. 2.5 seconds is the gap between Russell and Max Verstappen. 2.3 as he loses important time through turn 7. And finally, Alonso moves out of the way of George Russell. But now he's going to be in Max Verstappen's way. And this is going to play into the hands of Kimi Antonelli, who will have, on the final lap of this race, he will have 1 overtake mode available to use here, as George Russell is 2.2 seconds, lap 71 of 71, as they make their way into turn 1. It's a long run up the hill here as Fernando Alonso could play an important role. He's going to give a slipstream to Max Verstappen. How important will that be to hold on to P2 here for Max Verstappen as he moves out of the way, as Kimi Antonelli can only close up to half a second. There's a black and white flag for Lando Norris for track limits, as Kimi Antonelli, who has the extra level of grip here, is half a second. It's 4 tenths of a second. It's under 2 seconds to George Russell, but he only has half a lap to navigate here, as Antonelli does not have enough to get past Verstappen or even make a send into turn 4. And well, it all comes down to turn 9. Antonelli, he's going to send it through this middle sector for sure. Verstappen can see the rear wing of Russell as he has been for the last few laps, but he's going to fall just shy. He needed just a few more laps here, but Verstappen, they're going to be all deployment right now, as Antonelli is half a second behind Verstappen. He's going to get closer. Does he have enough overtake mode? Has Alonso just saved Verstappen there from finishing P3? I think he might have done, as George Russell rounds the last corner. His foot to the floor for Verstappen and Antonelli, and George Russell wins the Austrian Grand Prix by 1.6 seconds from Max Verstappen in P2. Antonelli in P3, Oscar Piastri in P4, and Lewis Hamilton will finish in P5. You can see Antonelli there was 3 tenths of a second, just under 4 tenths of a second behind Max Verstappen there. As they crossed the line, they needed one more lap. Didn't they? That's all they needed was one more lap. Lewis Hamilton crosses the line in P5, Isaac Hadjar in P6, Norris in P7, and Charles Leclerc in P8. We have Lawson in P9, Lindblad in P10. Their third successive double points finish for VCarb. Bortoletto in 11th, Hulkenberg in 12th, Gasly 13th. Behrman 14th, Colapinto 15th, Ocon 16th, Albon 17th, Alonso 18th, Stroll retired in 19th, Sainz retired in 20th, and Perez retired in 21st, and Bottas retired in 22nd. There we go, there we go. Let's have a look at the driver's standings. Let's have a go at the driver's standings, and here we go. Antonelli gains 15 points there, but loses 10 points to George Russell, is on 131. 40 points is the gap to George Russell and Kimi Antonelli. He had a 41-point gap heading into this weekend over Lewis Hamilton Antonelli, so he's only lost 1 point in the overall grand standing of his championship lead, although that now switches to George Russell in P2 as Lewis Hamilton could only finish 5th. He gains 10 points, he's on 125. So that is now 46 points to Kimi Antonelli. Oscar Piastri, 12 points for him as he finishes P4. A great last stint for McLaren. So quick on that hard compound tyre at the end. He is up into P4. He's up 2 places ahead of Charles Leclerc, as Charles Leclerc fell through the field here and finished P8. He is down into P6. At least he finally scored some points though. Lando Norris P5. He stays where he is. Max Verstappen gains 18 points, but is still 6 points shy of Norris and Charles Leclerc, who are in 5th and 6th on 79 points. Hadjar up into 8th now. He gets ahead of Pierre Gasly as Gasly scored nil points today. Liam Lawson still stays P10. He's scoring points consistently, but it's P9s, P10s. Nothing to shy away against. He now has a 12-point advantage over Ollie Behrman in P11. Closes down 2 points to Pierre Gasly as well. Franco Colapinto in 12th still. Albert Lindblad gains another point. He's in 13th still on 14 points. And then there's no other movement. On the constructors side of the championship, Mercedes gain points there on Ferrari. They gain 24 points. 26 points over Ferrari, 40 to 14. McLaren 18 points, 26 points for Red Bull. There have been no changes in the standings of the constructors. Racing Bulls closed down the gap to Alpine by 3 points. And there is now a 98-point gap to Mercedes and Ferrari in the constructors. That has dramatically improved there. So, by the way, Kimi Antonelli again flirting with track limits. He needed one more and he would have received a 5-second time penalty. Not that it would have mattered, but pushing there, Kimi Antonelli, he definitely does push the boundaries of the track. And there we go. There we go. Let's do your driver of the day, shall we? I wonder who's going to win this. Let's do driver of the day. Hang on. Who else we got here? Who else gained positions? Piastri? Yeah, Piastri did well. And I don't know who else really, to be fair. I'm only gonna do 3. I think only 3 are warranted it, you know. There you go. Do your driver of the day, guys. Do your driver of the day. Thank you for tuning in, by the way, guys. Hit that like button. Let's get this stream to 3,000 likes. Go on. I need 200 more. 200 more likes. Go on. You can do it. You can do it. And thank you for all the subscriptions, by the way, guys, as well. We're at 85,700. I think there's another 1,000. Yeah, it's another 1,000 subscribers today. So big thank you, everyone, for tuning in. As always, we'll be back for the British Grand Prix next week. I will not be here for the Friday because I believe I'm attending the race. Well, I'm attending Friday. It's not the race. I'm attending the race weekend. Driver of the day is Fernando Alonso because he finished the race. Maybe. He'll be saying it's his best race of the year. L Stratford Ferrari. Yeah. Well, the Ferrari strategy. I think personally they were forced into it. I think Ferrari were forced into that strategy because they were just losing too much time. They were losing too much time, and I think it was more so the performance of the car, which I didn't expect. I expected the performance to be a lot better on the tyres here this weekend, just like they were in Barcelona, but for some reason it didn't work for them. And Yeah, Piastri in particular, I think, look, Piastri, I think no one expected McLaren's pace to be as quick as that on low fuel on the hard compound tyre. But yeah, Ferrari definitely, their strategy was subpar, but it was also because they were poor on their tyres. And you saw Charles. Charles went long on the tyres, and he was just losing so much time. He had no grip at all. It wasn't because Charles was driving poorly. It's just because the car was just losing too much time, and that's why they were forced into that strategy. I'd be interested to hear their driver interviews afterwards, of course, but you think they messed up Hamilton? He had a podium for sure. I don't think he had a podium. No, I don't think he had a podium. I think they needed a VSC or something. There wasn't the pace there today over Verstappen and Antonelli. No. Right, driver of the day. Over 1,200 votes at the moment. George Russell, 25%. Verstappen, 67%. Piastri, 8%. Interesting. I had a feeling that it was going to be Verstappen, to be fair. Ferrari have a balanced downforce on new engine needs tweaking. Yeah, I don't know what happened this weekend for Ferrari. Ferrari choose their tyres. They did, yeah. I really expected them to... fare well here this weekend. Of course, over a single lap was good, but I thought their race pace would be so much better, and it was all down to their tyres. I thought the tyres would last so much longer, just like they did at Barcelona, and that wasn't the case. They did struggle. So maybe they got the setup wrong. I don't know. I'm sure that they will. Lewis is always quite honest. I mean, Fred Vasseur as well. So hopefully, I'm sure we will get some clarity on that. But yeah. What happened overall? We had to miss the entire... I'm not explaining the whole entire race right now. How do one compound tyre perform better than for one type of driver versus another? It can just be how the car is set up. So it can be things from ride height, suspension, etc. It can be a case of your car performs better on lower fuel, then like the car feels more balanced as there's less fuel in the car. Sometimes the car feels more balanced when it's got more fuel in the car, and then it becomes more difficult to drive when it's got lower fuel. Those things all lend themselves to balance and can be why a car and a driver then has an uptick in performance and time in speed towards the end of a race from the start of a race, or vice versa. And that's what we saw from McLaren today, I think. As soon as the car got lighter, they were just so much quicker. I mean, Piastri's pace on his second stint was like tremendous, absolutely tremendous. But George Russell converted it. George was made to work for it as well. He was made to work for it because he had 6 lap older tyres than Verstappen, and you could see that they were catching, but he had enough of an advantage to hold off Verstappen and Antonelli. And you could say, I think the thing is for Verstappen is that they were forced to pit earlier than they wanted to. But then again, they probably wouldn't have caught Russell. But yeah, it's difficult to say whether Verstappen would have caught Russell anyway. Maybe you could say in hindsight that he should have pitted earlier. But then would he have had enough pace anyway if they were on the same tyre? I don't know. Maybe Red Bull could have pitted a few laps earlier. It's all hindsight, of course. Antonelli, similarly. I mean, Antonelli was kind of always a bit more on the back foot. They always had to try and go for that tyre offset to give him the pace advantage at the end, although he was really the quickest driver here this weekend. But not always the quickest driver wins, of course. And look, George Russell has won that race this weekend, and he's now got a bit of form. He heads into his home race next time around, and he's gained 25 points. He's gained a heap of points on his teammate over the last 2 race weekends. So 35 points in the last 2 race weekends. So yeah, because he gained 25 last time and he's gained 10 here. Did you think Charles did not make a lot of the competition to avoid him being overtaken? No. So the nature of the Red Bull Ring is very... This is why the Red Bull Ring is so good for racing. So the Red Bull Ring, you could be a quick car, but when the pack is close, if you find yourself out of position from a defensive perspective or even an overtaking perspective, as Charles did, Charles actually got a good start, went for the overtake on George into turn 3. Now, he actually went a bit deep on the outside. That left him vulnerable to Lewis down into turn 4. And then he was out of position with Lewis on his inside into turn 4. And then what happened from there is that he's then on the back foot because he's then got a whole heap of cars behind him who are just as quick, if not quicker, i.e. Max Verstappen, and Antonelli, like on his behind. So he can't get any time to breathe because he's always having to move into a defensive position. He can't go on the racing line. And the nature of this circuit is that those who are attacking can take wider lines, they can do cutbacks, they can take different lines to like get extra speed basically and get an extra drive out of the corner. And for Charles, at the start of the race, he wasn't particularly slow. He just found himself from the get-go after that move into turn 3 on the back foot from a defensive position, and then he lost 2 positions to Verstappen, and then he lost 2 positions in 2 corners from Antonelli and Verstappen, and he was just then always on the back foot. And that's not to say he was slow and he was driving poorly. It's just a case of that is how the Red Bull Ring can present itself. And you saw Hamilton get past Charles early, and then he only had George Russell to try and chase in front, which he couldn't stay with, and he was then able to just like bed into his race, take his racing lines and build up the time and the gap behind, whereas Charles was always on the defence. Those racing balls are something else. Lawson is on form with these points. I know, and Lindblad as well. Lawson getting the better of Lindblad again. Lawson definitely seems to be... I mean, this is why it seems the rumours as Nicholas Solov going into that seat. Ridiculous at the moment. I mean, why would you replace Lawson? Why would you replace it? But yeah, great performance again from Lawson and Lindblad. Look, I'll be doing my driver ratings later this evening, guys, so be sure to tune in for those. It's a bit unfortunate because Max Verstappen had the better pace on the hard compound tyres. If Max had pitted when George Russell did, there was a high chance he would have won. In hindsight, yes, Rob, yeah, because you look at that second stint, Russell had to pit a bit earlier, didn't he? His pace did start to fall off compared to Verstappen. Verstappen definitely had the pace advantage in that middle stint. There was only 1 lap difference in age of tyre. I think George's were 1 lap younger than Verstappen's. So yeah, you look at it in hindsight, Red Bull could have responded really to Russell and probably should have done. And then Max probably would have been a lot closer and then would have had the pace to stay ahead of Russell. The race would have been very different then, wouldn't it? So yeah, missed opportunity maybe in hindsight for Verstappen and Red Bull. They thought the offset would be maybe a bit more worth it, but they was only able to get 6 before they tried to extend longer. And I think maybe what they wanted to try and do was use that extra set of mediums that they had available to use. But the drop off of the medium of the hards compared to Russell, it was like you're starting to see that window of opportunity of the offset, and then there being too large of a gap for Max to close. And arguably, yes, that gap was too large to close by the time Max came in and pitted. If they left it any longer on those mediums, he just wouldn't have been able to close down Russell quick enough and have enough to overtake him. So, thank you, Anissa. Did I hear about the Max to McLaren talks? Red Bull will probably get Piastri. I don't know if that'll be true, if that's true or not. It's probably a bit hogwash, to be honest with you. Was it the engine or the tyres that caused Ferrari disadvantage? Because Hamilton was saying about no grip during the starting laps leading to a double pit stop. It was definitely the pit stop. Definitely the tyres. I don't know why. I'm sure they'll let us know, but it might be a case of that they just got the balance wrong. It'd be interesting to know why they were so harsh on their tyres when they were so good at Barcelona. And you had a more high abrasive circuit at Barcelona, and you still had to manage the temperatures at Barcelona, but here you had to manage the temperatures more. So I thought Mercedes was struggled more, to be honest with you, with their tyre temps. But Red Bull definitely made some improvements, for sure. And what you saw maybe was the driver making a difference as well. Max Verstappen being much better on managing those rear temps than maybe George Russell and maybe not, yeah, and Kimi as well. Kimi seems to maybe do a bit better than George, but George got the advantage, didn't he? So, right, your driver of the day is, unsurprisingly, Max Verstappen. 65% of the votes, 28% George Russell, and Piastri, 7% of the votes. Charles Leclerc has a Lewis Hamilton problem, mate. Silverstone and Hungary coming up does not bode well for Charles. I know. And, well, look, let's have a look at the live driver's standing, shall we? Because Charles Leclerc is now 90... No, sorry, 90... Not 98. What am I saying? 91... How many points is that, guys? He's nearly 100 points behind, isn't he? From Kimi Antonelli. And Lewis Hamilton is 41. There's already 80 to 125. So that is 98 points, 92 points, 98 points difference. I don't know. Yeah, my maths is terrible when I ain't got a calculator. But there's a large gap, put it that way. 88 points. There you go. 88 points. Yeah, that sounds more right. So there's 88 points difference, right? And there's what, 48 points difference between Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc, or 41 points, 45 points difference between Hamilton and Leclerc. So Hamilton is closer to Antonelli than Leclerc is to Hamilton. And that is... So how many race wins difference is that? So 25, 88. He's more than 3 race wins behind Antonelli now. 92 points. Is 92 points? Okay, 92 points. Whatever. He's still more than 3. He's nearly 4 race wins behind Antonelli, right? How do you get there? At what point do Ferrari go, like, Charles, you need to support Lewis now. This is Lewis. Like, we need to support Lewis. I think that is getting very close. I think that is getting very close to that point of where they start favouring Lewis. And especially if after Silverstone, like, that gap gets even wider to Charles and Hamilton is able to close up the gap to Antonelli. I'm not sure if they will, but if there's one circuit where Lewis delivers, yes, it is Silverstone. But Antonelli also likes Silverstone, as does George Russell, as does Max. Summer break assessment on that. I think it will be summer break, yeah. So when is the summer break? We've got a few more races left, haven't we? Coming up. I think we've got Great Britain. Yeah, so we've got 3 more races. So we've got the GB race, UK race next week at Silverstone. Then we have another 2-week break. And then we head to Spa in Hungary. And then we have the summer break, where we will then have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. As it stands, 11 more races. I think Saudi will be slotted in there at the end of the year, so probably 12. Yeah, I think you're right. Summer break, if that gap is still the same, they're favouring Lewis. Like, you've got to. So, do I know who Virat Kohli is? He's a cricket player, isn't he? Chance of rain at Silverstone? There's always a chance of rain at Silverstone. Don't ever rule it out, even if it's ridiculously hot, which it has been in the UK. So, yeah, there's always a chance at Silverstone of there being rain. 4 teams within a good 25 seconds. Spicy future. 25 seconds. Large gap, really, isn't it, when you think about it? Do I think Charles can win the championship? No. Not with the way that he's driving. And that's the thing, right? Look, Ferrari were poor here this weekend. And maybe with a better strategy, maybe not pitting Lewis under the VSC, they could have got Lewis to P4. But Lewis is still finishing the top 5. Right? And he's had a poor race, really, by his standards. At a circuit that many say is his weakest, or one of his weakest, he still finished P5. He still picked up a decent haul of points, whereas Charles finished 8th and picked up 4. 6 points difference there. That is the difference between staying within a championship, staying within touching distance. So yes, Lewis has lost 5 points to Antonelli, but in the grand standing of things, they still don't have a car yet to beat Mercedes at every single race circuit. That may still change, and he's staying within that touching distance, so that yes, there could be enough of an opportunity for him to capitalise on the Mercedes. Even in poor race setup, Lewis was matching George somewhat. It's a team issue this week. From that aspect, Mercedes is just much better package. Look, Mercedes I thought they'd struggle. Heading into this weekend, I thought from what we saw at Barcelona and here, while the physical degradation isn't so much of an issue here, it's the thermal degradation, so managing the tyre temps, I thought they would struggle. I really did. But no, they were the quickest package with Max. And, I mean, it's clearly over a single lap they were the quickest package. Max, people will say, oh, well, Max could have got pole. But for Max to keep it within track limits, if Max didn't send it as much as he did into turn 9 and crash, I think he probably would have been around the Ferraris. That's probably what his time would have been, or just ahead of them. He still would have been off the pace of the Mercedes duo. So Red Bull this weekend, third fastest car. Second fastest car. It looked like with Max Verstappen. Mercedes the fastest, even with those high tyre temps. Ferrari, yeah, don't know what happened to them today. I expected better with the tyre management, but it seemed that was their Achilles heel, and that's why they just saw so much pace. Leclerc not having fun racing. Maybe the beginning contract's getting his head. I don't think so. I think he's just not. He even said it himself yesterday. That he's not pushing to the limit because of the past few races. He wasn't pushing to the limit of the car because he was trying to dial it back and just like get some laps in, which he says is natural after you've had the run that he's been on. So I still think, yeah, maybe a little bit harsh today to finish behind Hadjar and Norris. Really put out of position at the start of the race, which I said, because of just like always on the defence in those first opening laps because he tried to go for the move on George. And yes, that's kind of driver error to a degree because it left himself out of position against Hamilton, and then he was always on the defence. But yeah, Ferrari maybe left him out a bit too long, but that's also the car. That's not necessarily down to him. Lewis, any day over Michael. He fought more battles outside racing compared to just in-track battles. That is what world champions do, taking points on the bad weekends. Exactly, Phoenix. I've always said that. It's not how you perform on your good. The greats, they're great because of not how well they perform on their good day. It's the fact of even on their bad days, they're able to still win championships, win races, win matches, etc. Whatever its sport it may be, still perform at a level that keeps them in a tournament and win. So. You can never rule out Max, but let's be for real. It's probably one of the Mercedes boys who will probably win. Maybe, yeah. I don't think the Red Bull. The thing is, look, Max is 90. Is 98 points behind, right? He's on 73 points compared to Anthony's 171 points. He needs to win. That car needs to become like it was last year, where it was able to win 10 races. And Max hasn't won a race yet. Now, of course, there's still enough races left to win 10 races, but I don't see that Red Bull all of a sudden being the fastest car to be able to win that amount of races to catch up to Antonelli and Russell. And that's also as well hoping that Antonelli and Russell and the Mercedes have poor weekends and DNFs and stuff, which of course the McLarens did last year. Yeah, the Red Bull unfortunately have got off to too poor of a start. Whereas I see Hamilton more in Verstappen's position at the moment. Whereas you had the McLarens dominating the start of last year, and Verstappen he was still there, wasn't he? The car wasn't the fastest. There were some circuits where it was quick enough to win, and of course towards the end of the year it became the quickest car at a lot of circuits, but which played obviously into its strengths. And I feel like Hamilton's in that position now, where it's between, realistically, the two Mercedes boys. But they're going for their first World Championship. They're going to take points off of each other. Like now, this weekend, they've taken points off of each other again, which still keeps Hamilton within touching distance. And throughout this season, there's going to be ebbs and flows of development, and there's going to be tracks where Hamilton is able to probably win, I think. And there's going to be some races where can you truly see the Mercedes duo not colliding this season? There's going to come a point where they collide, or like one of their drivers gets taken out because of a collision or something. And then, of course, you have reliability into the mix as well. That is a position I think Hamilton finds himself in, like Verstappen last year, whereas unfortunately Verstappen has just, the Red Bull's got off to too much poor of a start. So yeah. It may not have been an ideal race for Ferrari, but at least it wasn't a WNF, so I would say the Ferrari curse is somewhat lifted. Williams is way behind. They are indeed way too far behind. Retirement, 17th. A retirement for Sainz when he was running nowhere. Oof. Why did Hamilton pit in that VSC, and do I think it was a good idea? Well, let's have a look, shall we? So he pitted. He was on 13 lap old hards. Pitted there. I guess, I mean, I can't remember what the pace of Lewis was at the time. I have to go back and look at it. But maybe it was, because maybe if they left them out there... I need to compare his lap times to Charles at the time when they was on the hards, because Charles went 24 laps on those hards. He stayed out, didn't pit under the VSC. I think Charles pitted only a lap later than Hamilton. So I need to see what their pace was on the same laps, because if Hamilton was quicker than Charles, then maybe bringing him in for the softs was too early. But if his lap times were similar to Charles, then I think he probably would have had a similar fall off to Charles as well. And you look at where Charles has finished. Charles has finished because of the massive drop off. He would have then gone on to another set of hards, Lewis, and he might not have finished fifth. He might have finished behind like Hadjar and Norris, because Hadjar's like, there's only 5 seconds separating Hamilton to Norris. Like, there's not a lot there. So maybe the softs actually has allowed him a bit of extra pace there to then have enough tyre life towards the end. Hadjar wasn't really catching towards the end. I mean, he had a bit of pace there, 12.6, 12.9. But I need to see what the pace was at the time between Charles and Lewis on those laps when he then eventually pitted for the VSC. But he potentially... You could say Lewis pitting only lost him 4th, but you could say him not pitting secured him 5th, and he might have finished 7th behind Hadjar and Norris as well. Why didn't Lewis have a set of mediums? They didn't save them. It was only the Red Bulls who had 2 brand new sets of mediums available. So yeah, with that, yeah, maybe that strategy could have been better for Lewis, but that's a decision that they made as the weekend progressed. Someone said Slipperstone. I'm dying on the floor. Thank you guys for tuning in as always. Yeah, much appreciated, guys. Over 3,000 likes, by the way. Thank you. And we are on how many subs? 85,871. Thank you. Getting ever closer. Predictions for the next races? I mean, it's too early to say without seeing the weather report and so forth. I mean, look, I'll have a look at the weather report right now for Silverstone next week, but where's the weather? Next weekend is looking warm, 25 degrees, sunny, no rain, but that could very much change in the UK. I think Ferrari will fare better, because I think Ferrari will fare... Oh, actually, then again, you've got the power unit, haven't they? Ooh. I think Mercedes will dominate. It's a power-dependent circuit, isn't it, Silverstone? It's so power-dependent. I think Mercedes will dominate that. And I think Red Bull, I think Verstappen... It wouldn't surprise me to see a similar performance here, but I think Ferrari will fare... I don't think Ferrari will have the same level of degradation or struggles here, but I think Mercedes will dominate. I think that Mercedes will dominate purely because of how good their power unit is right now. And Silverstone just lends itself to that. And then I think the Red Bull powertrain might be coming into its own as well, with what we saw here this weekend. So Ferrari, maybe 3rd fastest car, I reckon. But we'll see. Thank you, Rick. Much appreciated. Will Lando get the upgrade next week? I don't know what McLaren's update path is at the moment. Lando did say that they're like 3 months behind. Which is not good, is it? Silverstone's all about wind direction changes. Mercs will dominate though, but Ferrari have race data with engine upgrade. Yeah, I mean, there may be improvements in Ferrari. I just still expect it with how power dependent it is Silverstone to be Mercedes. Like Ferrari, I think, have made a bit of improvement on their power, but not as much, of course, as what still Mercedes' advantage is. No, it doesn't have complete reliability, no, but you can't take reliability. You can't really predict whether someone's going to have reliability issues or no. Would Hamilton finish 4th without softs? Well, this is what I think. So I'm going to have a quick look back through my stream, and I'm just going to have a look at the pace of at the time. I'm going to have a look at the pace that Hamilton had at the time he pitted. So that is the real question. The question is, what was the pace of Hamilton to Leclerc? Because we have Leclerc's benchmark, right, of his pace. So Hamilton's already on the softs there. So there we go. So 5 lap old hards, 7 lap old, so 11 lap olds, 12.3 afterwards, 11.5, 12.5. Oh, there's a yellow flag there. Charles Leclerc did a 12.6. I need to go back. Well, to be fair, we can have a look on here actually, can't we? We can have a look at lap times. Is this the one? There we go. We can have a look at this. I always forget this exists. So the virtual safety car came out around lap 25, right? So we can see Hamilton and Leclerc here. So here we go. There's the softs. Does it not go beyond that? Oh my goodness, I can't see beyond that. Why does it not go? Why does it not go beyond lap 24? Oh my goodness, I can't even see it. Goodness sake. It doesn't go beyond that. So I'm trying to look at the lap times of Hamilton. So Hamilton did 11.6 there. 12.2, 12.2. Hamilton did a 11.8. Leclerc did a 12.2, a 12.0. It looks like that Hamilton's lap times were 11.9, and then Charles Leclerc did a 11.6. It looks like that Lewis was a little bit... I think he would have lost 4th. I think he would have lost, in hindsight. Pitting him on the softs was probably the right decision. I think when you look at how much they struggled, I think looking back at it, the pace, he didn't have a significant pace advantage over Charles. And what we have, so that means that he wasn't going quicker than Charles, and he didn't have like the better tyre life than him. So I think we have the benefit of knowing what Charles was able to do on those tyres. It wasn't like Charles was going miles quicker than Lewis, and they were around similar pace, to be fair. So if he continued, he would have fallen off just like Charles, and he would have finished behind Hadjar and Norris, in my opinion. So it was more about damage limitation, this race from Ferrari. Monza next and final, engine upgraded and much needed. Well, Monza upcoming. How many seconds is the pit stop? 20 and 10.5 seconds under. 10.5 seconds under the VSC. I think you saw the pace drop off of Charles Leclerc. So I'm looking at Charles Leclerc's pace drop off. So he did an 11.6, by the way, just before the safety car came out, and then towards the end of his stint, he was doing 12.5s. So it's like a second drop off towards like the end. So he would have been cool. He would have been cool, I think. Bearing in mind that gap was 5 seconds as well. 5 seconds at the end, 10-second pit stop. Yeah, I think with how long you'd have to go on that last stint as well. I think in the end it was the right decision to go to the softs. What racing would I give this race, Gohan? Thank you for the T199, by the way. I would give this race... I would give it a 7 out of 10, I think. 7, maybe an 8 out of 10. Oh, watching the... By the way, finally seen the... I finally seen the incident that was reviewed by with Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen, forcing another driver off the track. Max never had his front wheels ahead of Lewis's front axle. So, yeah, Lewis Hamilton was always ahead there of Max Verstappen. They didn't have 2 mediums available. That's why they couldn't use the mediums in that middle stint, really, when he pitted under the VSC. So really, they have... I think Ferrari made the right decision by pitting under the VSC, getting a cheap pit stop, going onto those softs, because it's the only tough tyre they had available, and try and gain some time out on track to then... Basically, they tried to neutralise the time loss that they would have had, and minimise the time loss that they had on the hard compound tyre towards the end that they could see. So, yeah, good vision, really, by Ferrari. Italian media won't allow Ferrari to look this bad in a straight line at Monza. They may give them grace if Kimi wins. Jazz, you could execute the best strategy possible for a race and still not do great. There are so many variables that help win a race. Yeah, of course there is. Yeah, of course. And look at Kimi. Like, Kimi could have... Mate, Max is so, like, naughty anyway when he comes to overtaking. Mid-7 race, great commentary. Yeah, thanks, Sid. Much appreciated. Red Bull trying to cheat again. Fake drink, fake people that drink. But yeah, no, I think Ferrari... Look, they left Charles out. I think the fact of the matter is that we can see what happened with Charles. We could see the tyre fall off and how he was struggling at the end, and he was just a sitting duck. We saw Piastri's pace on the hards. We saw Norris's pace on the hards at the end. Even Hadjar. And they would have caught and comfortably overtaken Hamilton at the end with the fall off that they had. So yeah, I don't know what happened with Ferrari. I'm intrigued to hear their interviews and see exactly why they lost so much pace, why that reason was. Because I did expect them to fare much better here than they're considering what we saw in Barcelona. What did you send me then, Dusko? Did you send me something? Is it surprising how Ferrari lost in the corners? Like, they're good in straights, but corners are lacking. Yeah, that would have been due to the tyres not lasting long. They were good in the corners when the tyres were fresh, but they weren't able to keep those tyres in the right window for long enough, which is, yeah, surprising. Right, guys, that is it from me today, by the way. I did enjoy that race. For me, about a 7 out of 10, I think it was. Maybe a 7.5 out of 10. We had, obviously, a race to the finish line between that of Russell, Antonelli, and Verstappen. We had some wheel-to-wheel battling, which is good. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I am going to give it an 8 out of 10. Because we did see some good wheel-to-wheel fighting. We saw like a chase at the end for the win. And I like that. Now I look back on it, I like that. We had a couple of VSCs that didn't really play too much of a role here today. But there was intrigue on the strategy. And I like that. I think Red Bull Ring, once again, well, maybe not one of the most historic races in Red Bull Ring's history. I think it was a good start for these regulations here. I was a little bit concerned that with no DRS and the effectiveness of the DRS when it came to like slower cars being able to stay with faster cars in that previous regulations. I was worried with everyone having access to active aero that would be negated, but no, the overtake mode button worked, the boost mode worked, and even the slipstream was quite powerful. We were able to see cars, if they were overtaken into turn 3, regain a position back down into turn 4, and that's what I like about the Red Bull Ring, is that there's always an opportunity to do cutbacks and return to sender and so forth, and that's what makes this circuit enjoyable, and we saw that today. So yeah, really good. I did see that that screenshot. The difference in lines between George and Charles were quite interesting, weren't they, with their laps yesterday in qualifying. Won't be able to watch along Silverstone. Well, I am going to be, for the first time ever, I'm going to be at Silverstone, but on Friday. I'm not going to be there on the Saturday and Sunday, so I will be here for my watch-alongs, of course. Remember, it's a sprint race weekend, but I will be missing sprint quali because I will be at the track. I'll be trackside, which I'm so looking forward to. I'm going to record my experience as well for you, so you'll be able to, experience along with me. I won't be live streaming from it, of course. I just want to record it. It's going to be very raw. I'm not a vlogger type person, of course. So yeah, I'll give it my best shot for you and try and capture the day as best as I possibly can and the experience. And yeah, I've been Silverstone once before for the World Endurance Championship, which was like 10 years ago. I think it was. Yeah, I think it was like 10 years ago. Coming up to 10 years, something like that. So I know the track is not the track itself, but I know obviously the area itself has changed. And I've never been there on an F1 day. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Hamilton's championship dreams are already over. You think, Taco? I don't know. I don't think so, as we said earlier on. I think as long as you still stay in it, as long as you still stay in the, stay within touching distance, I think Hamilton's in Max's position last year. I think the car will improve as the year goes on. I think that performance gap will close, just like Red Bull did last year. There'll be circuits where the Ferrari outperforms the Mercedes, and I think it is undoubtedly going to be Antonelli and Russell swapping positions, taking points off of each other, and crashing into each other at some point as well, just like the McLarens did. Adding the reliability factor, I think if Hamilton just keeps scoring points and staying within touching distances, yes, today a podium wasn't there for him. I think there's an opportunity here still for him. So still a long way to go. Just do what I do. Yeah, thanks, Johnny. I have my own standards, though, you know. Wouldn't want you commentating for everyone in the stands. No. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Hope you guys enjoyed today. A great stream, over 3,100 likes, and yeah, we've got 85,880 subscribers at the moment. So yeah, another great stream, and I think we hit 25,000 viewers or something. So yeah, thank you as always. We'll be back next week for Silverstone. Yes, I won't be here on the Friday. I'll be here on the Saturday and Sunday for the sprint race, qualifying, and the main race on Sunday. Silverstone, top weekend. I love it. Yes, British bias. I don't care. I just think it's a circuit that always provides. And I think this double header of Austria and the British Grand Prix, one after another, is brilliant. They're two circuits that provide racing. The nature of Silverstone as well, similar to this, as the drivers say, there's the corners there allow for multiple different race lines to be taken, so that you can offset the dirty air, find pockets of clean air, and ensure that you get different, you're able to maximize your exits. And yeah, I just think it's a circuit that promotes overtaking. And with the weather, you never know what the weather's going to do. In the UK, of course, that also adds to the drama. So yeah, have a lovely rest of your Sunday, guys. And we will be seeing you next week for the British Grand Prix. And I'll give you an update of how my experience was trackside on the Friday. We'll see you then. Thanks, guys. Bye. Driver ratings incoming this evening, by the way.